The first thing Cale Vane saw was his own blood crawling across the dungeon floor. It slipped between broken tiles and thin red streams, winding toward the black altar at the center of the chamber as if something
beneath the stone was drinking it. The second thing he saw was Mira smiling. She stood over him with his dagger in her hand, the same dagger he had given her when they entered the academy.
the same dagger she had once pressed against her heart while promising she would never betray him. Now its blade was buried beneath his ribs. "You should have stayed useless," she whispered. Cale coughed blood onto her boots. Behind her, the other members of the Ironcrest raid team laughed. No one looked surprised. No one rushed to help him. They had planned this. Their leader, Darius Holt, stepped past Mira and tore the black crystal from Cale's trembling hand. The crystal was warm. It had fallen from the chest of the dungeon boss after Cale noticed the creature's hidden wound and directed the entire battle around it. Darius had missed every opening. Mira had nearly died twice. The others had spent most of the fight screaming. Cale had saved them. Again. And now they were stealing the reward. Darius held the crystal beneath the sickly blue light and grinned. A legendary class catalyst. One of the archers whistled. Another kicked Cale in the shoulder. To think trash like him touched it first. Cale rolled onto his back. Pain crushed his lungs. His class emblem burned faintly beneath his torn glove. Necromancer. A class so despised that even healers refused to treat those who awakened it. Most necromancers could animate a single skeleton for a few minutes. The summoned creature moved slowly, broke easily, and consumed more mana than an ordinary fighter used in an entire battle. Cale had awakened the class 3 years earlier. Since then, he had endured every insult the Academy could invent. Grave rat, bone beggar, corpse lover, trash summoner. Professors used him as an example of wasted talent. Students threw dead insects into his meals and told him to build an army. Guild recruiters laughed before he finished saying his name. Only Mira had pretended to care. That lie had lasted until the moment Darius offered her a place beside him. "You knew?" Cale asked. His voice came out weak. Mira crouched beside him. Her expression softened, but there was no guilt in her eyes. Only impatience. "You were useful," she said. "You noticed traps. You memorized monster patterns. You carried our supplies. But did you honestly think I would stay with a man who commands broken skeletons?" Darius laughed. Mira glanced back at him, eager for approval. Cale understood everything. The secret meetings, the whispers that stopped when he entered the room, the sudden change in the dungeon route, the way Darius had insisted Cale take the crystal first. The catalyst was protected by a blood contract. The first person to touch it became marked. If someone else stole it before the contract was completed, the marked person would be hunted by the dungeon guardian. They had used him to absorb the curse. Darius had not merely stolen the reward. He had handed Cale a death sentence. A deep rumble moved through the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. The raid team turned toward the massive stone gate behind the altar. Something struck it from the other side. Once, the metal hinges screamed. Twice, cracks spread across the wall. The faces around Kyle lost their amusement. Darius clenched the catalyst. Time to leave. The gate erupted inward. A hand made of fused skulls reached through the darkness. The guardian dragged itself into the chamber. It had the body of a giant knight, but no living flesh remained beneath its armor. Hundreds of human bones had been hammered together to form its limbs. Pale souls twisted inside its chest. Every face trapped within it screamed without sound. A crown of rusted blades circled its helmet. The Grave Warden. It was stronger than the boss they had barely defeated. Much stronger. Its hollow gaze passed over the raid team. Then it fixed on Cale. The mark beneath his skin ignited. Mira immediately backed away. Darius raised his shield, but only long enough to cover his retreat. "Hold it here," he ordered. Cale almost laughed. He was bleeding to death. His mana was empty. His weapon lay several steps away. They still expected him to save them. The Grave Warden lifted its sword. The raid team sprinted toward the escape tunnel. Mira hesitated at the entrance. For the briefest moment, Cale wondered whether some fragment of their past remained inside her. Then she picked up his fallen storage ring. "Consider this payment for wasting my time." She disappeared into the tunnel. The stone doors slammed shut behind them. Cale was alone. The Grave Warden advanced. Each step cracked the floor. Cale pressed one hand against his wound and stared at the monster. He did not beg. He did not curse Mira. He did not shout after Darius. The betrayal hurt, But pain was information. Information could be used. He watched the Guardian's movements. The left leg dragged slightly. 3 souls inside its chest flickered out of rhythm. Its sword arm trembled after every swing. Weaknesses. Even now, his mind searched for them. That habit had kept him alive while stronger hunters died. It would not save him this time. The Grave Warden raised its blade above his neck. A blue window appeared before Kale's eyes. The letters were not written in the Academy's system language. They were carved in something older. Something that looked less like words and more like scars. The blood of the rejected has reached the throne of silence. The vessel has endured betrayal without surrender. The dead have heard his hatred. The forbidden authority is awakening. Kale's eyes narrowed. The blade descended. Darkness exploded from his shadow. A hand burst from beneath the floor and caught the sword. Not a skeletal hand. A gauntlet. Black iron fingers closed around the blade with enough force to stop the Grave Warden's strike inches from Kale's throat. The floor split. A corpse climbed out of the stone. It wore shattered silver armor. A torn cloak hung from one shoulder. A spear remained buried through its chest, but blue fire burned inside its empty eyes. Kale recognized the armor. The corpse belonged to Sir Aldrin Vale, an elite knight who had vanished inside this dungeon decades ago. Every Academy student knew the story. Aldrin had entered with an army and never returned. His remains had become part of the Grave Warden. Until now. The dead knight twisted the Guardian's sword aside. Then he punched through its helmet. Bone shattered. The Grave Warden staggered. Aldrin ripped the spear from his own chest and drove it into the monster's knee. Kale felt a chain form between his soul and the knight. Not a fragile thread like his old summoning skill. A chain. Cold, heavy, absolute. A second window appeared. Unique authority awakened. Sovereign extraction. The souls of worthy corpses may be extracted. The dead retain their instincts, combat experience, and growth potential. Those who submit become immortal servants. Those who resist may be broken. Kale stared at the words. His breathing slowed. The pain did not disappear. The danger remained. But something inside him became silent. He raised one blood-covered hand. Aldrin. The undead knight froze. Its burning eyes turned toward him. Kale had never spoken the name aloud before. He simply knew it. The connection carried memories. Not full memories. Fragments. A battlefield beneath red snow. A king kneeling before a black dragon. A gate beneath the world. Aldrin's final order. Protect the heir of death. The knight dropped to one knee. The Grave Warden roared and swung its sword at Kale again. Aldrin vanished. The undead moved faster than any corpse should have been able to move. He appeared behind the Guardian, severed its weakened leg, and drove his spear through the mass of souls inside its chest. The chamber filled with shrieking light. The Grave Warden collapsed. Its enormous body struck the floor hard enough to throw Kale against the altar. His vision blurred. The blue flames inside Aldrin's eyes flickered. Kale understood the cost. The knight was powerful, but Kale's mana was nearly gone. If the bond consumed any more energy, both of them would collapse. He crawled toward the Guardian's corpse. The mark beneath his skin continued burning. The stolen catalyst was moving farther away. Darius was escaping with it. Kale placed his palm against the Grave Warden's broken armor. The authority inside him responded. A storm of whispers entered his mind. Hundreds of dead souls. Soldiers. Prisoners. Hunters. Children. Monsters. Most were too damaged to restore. Some were little more than fragments. But several remained sharp. Angry. Useful. Extract. Dark mist poured from the corpse. The chamber dimmed. The dead knight beside him lowered his head as pale figures emerged one after another. A pair of skeletal hounds dragged themselves from the Guardian's ribs. A headless executioner rose from its spine. 3 armored archers formed from the bones in its arms. Each creature carried traces of the skills it had possessed in life. Each creature looked toward Kale. Then each one knelt. His old class had allowed him to animate bones. This authority allowed him to command death. The difference was not power. It was ownership. The system trembled again. A warning appeared. The Sovereign's vessel is critically wounded. Death energy may replace lost blood temporarily. Excessive use will corrode living organs. Kale almost smiled. A dangerous option was still an option. Transfer. Black energy flowed from the Grave Warden into his wound. His flesh tightened. The bleeding stopped. Agony spread through his veins, cold enough to make his teeth ache, but strength returned to his legs. He stood. Aldrin remained kneeling. The new undead waited in silence. Kale studied them carefully. The hounds were fast. The archers could scout. The executioner carried enough raw strength to break a shield wall. Aldrin was different. He had intelligence, experience, and a sealed power far beyond his current state. Kale could feel it buried inside the knight like a sword locked in ice. Evolution potential. That realization was more valuable than the stolen catalyst. The raid team believed they had taken his future. They had actually freed him from a worthless imitation of his true class. A faint sound echoed from the escape tunnel. Footsteps. Someone was returning. Kale dismissed the lesser undead into his shadow. The creatures dissolved into black smoke and vanished beneath his feet. Aldrin remained visible for one more breath. Kale looked at him. Sleep. The night sank into darkness. A moment later, Mira pushed open the stone door. Her face was pale. She stopped when she saw the dead guardian. Then she saw Kale standing beside it. Impossible disbelief crossed her expression. You're alive. Kale leaned against the altar and allowed his shoulders to sag. He hid the coldness in his eyes. Barely. Mira looked around the chamber. Her gaze moved over the shattered guardian, searching for loot. Greed overcame caution. How did it die? The ceiling collapsed on it. She glanced upward. Several broken stones lay across the floor. The lie was weak. But Mira wanted it to be true. People believed any explanation that protected their pride. She approached him carefully. Darius sent me back. Kale knew that was false. Darius would never risk her life for him. She had returned because she feared the guardian might drop something more valuable than the catalyst. Mira wiped the blood from her dagger. We thought you were already dead. Kale looked at the blade. I noticed. Her lips tightened. For a moment, fear flickered behind her eyes. Then she remembered his class, trash necromancer. Weak support hunter. Disposable fool. Her confidence returned. The situation forced us to make a difficult decision. You understand that, right? Kale smiled. It was a small smile. Calm. Almost grateful. Mira relaxed. She mistook silence for surrender. She always had. We can still help each other. She continued. Darius will tell the academy that you contributed to the mission. Perhaps they'll even let you keep a minor reward. How generous. She missed the mockery. Exactly. So hand over anything the guardian dropped, and we'll forget this misunderstanding. Kale glanced at the corpse. He had already taken everything that mattered. Its souls. Its soldiers. Its death energy. He kicked a rusted metal fragment toward her. Mira grabbed it immediately. A system notification shimmered above the fragment. Grave Warden armor shard. Rare crafting material. Her eyes widened. Kale watched satisfaction erase the last of her suspicion. Let's go, she said. The others are waiting. He followed. Not because he had forgiven them. Not because he needed their protection. Because the catalyst Darius stole was still connected to him. Through the mark, Kale could feel something awakening inside it. A hunger. The crystal was not a class catalyst. It was a key. Darius had taken the key willingly. Now Kale only needed him to open the correct door. They passed through the dungeon tunnels. Mira walked ahead, talking about what Darius would do after absorbing the crystal. She spoke of guild offers, rank promotions, fame. She never noticed the shadow beneath Kale's feet moving against the light. She never heard the skeletal hounds crawling silently through the walls. She never saw Aldrin's burning eyes watching from every dark reflection. At the final corridor, Kale stopped. A pressure rolled through the dungeon. Ancient. Vast. The entire underground complex seemed to inhale. Mira turned. What now? Kale ignored her. Aldrin's memory fragment had awakened inside his mind. A throne beneath red snow. A chained black dragon. A knight's final oath. Protect the heir of death. Kale looked toward a sealed wall covered in old claw marks. Behind it, something enormous had been buried. Not a monster. Not a guardian. A king. The system formed a final message. A supreme corpse has been detected. Species unknown. Authority sealed. Soul rank exceeds the vessel's current limit. Attempting extraction may result in immediate death. Kale placed his palm against the wall. On the other side, a dead dragon opened its eyes. The dragon's eye was larger than Kale's entire body. It opened behind the stone wall without making a sound. No roar. No tremor. No burst of flame. Only a slit of molten gold appearing in the darkness. Kyle's hand went cold against the sealed surface. A memory that did not belong to him surged through his mind. A black sky split by red lightning. Cities burning beneath wings wide enough to cover mountains. Armies kneeling in fields of white ash. At the center of it all stood a dragon wearing a crown made from broken swords. Then the vision vanished. Kale stepped back. Mira frowned. What are you staring at? Nothing. The wall had already become ordinary again. The pressure disappeared. Even the claw marks looked shallow now. Mira rolled her eyes. Your wound must be worse than it looks. Kale let her believe that. He could still feel the dead dragon behind the wall. Its soul was chained. Its corpse was intact. Its authority was sealed by something older than the academy, older than the kingdom, perhaps older than the system itself. But the warning had been clear. Attempting extraction now would kill him. Kale did not gamble with treasures he could secure later. He memorized every crack in the wall, every symbol near the floor, and every turn in the corridor leading back to it. Then he followed Mira toward the exit. The rest of the Iron Crest team waited near the dungeon gate. Darius stood in the center of them, one hand wrapped around the black crystal. Its light pulsed beneath his fingers. The rhythm matched Kale's heartbeat. Darius noticed him and went still. For one breath, fear appeared on his face. Then the others began shouting. The trash survived? How? He looks half dead. Did Mira drag him out? Mira lifted the rusted armor shard. I found him beside the guardian's corpse. The creature was crushed by falling stone. The team stared at the shard. Greed swept through them. Darius recovered first. He walked toward Kale with a broad smile. My friend, I knew you would survive. Kale looked at the hand Darius extended. Blood still stained the knuckles. The same hand had shoved Kale toward the guardian. Kale took it. Darius pulled him closer. His voice dropped. You found anything else? Only the shard. Darius searched his face. Kale allowed exhaustion to dull his eyes. He let his body sway. He even tightened his jaw as if trying to hide pain. Darius saw exactly what he wanted to see. A wounded weakling. A frightened victim. A man too dependent on the group to seek revenge. The leader released him. You should be grateful, Darius said loudly. Despite your mistake, we still came back for you. The others nodded. The lie spread through them effortlessly. One of the warriors laughed. He nearly ruined the raid by touching that crystal. Another spat near Kale's boot. Trash classes always get greedy. Mira folded her arms. We should decide what happens to the reward before leaving. Darius raised the crystal. Everyone became silent. It is clearly too dangerous for Kyle, he said. The curse already targeted him once. Kyle almost admired the performance. Darius spoke gently, reasonably, like a leader carrying a painful responsibility. For the sake of the team, I will bear the risk and absorb it myself. The archer immediately clapped. Others followed. The same people who had fled while Kale bled now praised Darius for courage. Mira looked at Kale. You understand, don't you? Kale pressed a hand to his wound. What happens to my contribution? An ugly silence followed. Darius sighed. We all contributed. I identified the boss's weakness. You made a suggestion. I disarmed the altar trap. The scouts discovered. At first, I touched the crystal and endangered everyone. Every truth was twisted before the crowd could remember it correctly. Kale watched them choose comfort over honesty. They needed Darius to be the hero because they had already tied their futures to him. Admitting Kale's value would expose their own cowardice. Mira stepped closer. Do not make this difficult. Her tone carried false sympathy. We can still request a recovery potion for you. The team healer laughed under her breath. A recovery potion cost less than the boots Darius wore. Kale lowered his eyes. Then he nodded. Keep it. The reaction was immediate. Smirks. Relaxed shoulders. Quiet laughter. Darius lifted his chin. Mira looked relieved. The crowd had expected resistance. His surrender confirmed everything they believed. Weak. Spineless. Pathetic. Darius placed one hand on Kyle's shoulder. You made the right choice. Kale smiled faintly. So did you. Darius did not understand. The crystal pulsed again. A thin black line appeared beneath his wrist, then vanished into his sleeve. Kale saw it. No one else did. The stolen key had tasted Darius's blood. The curse had accepted him. Perfect. They left the dungeon together. Outside, academy officials had established a temporary camp. Healers moved between the wounded. Merchants waited beside carts. Guild representatives watched every returning team with predatory eyes. The moment Darius raised the crystal, Whispers spread. A legendary catalyst. A hidden dungeon reward. A future elite class. Within minutes, instructors surrounded him. Kale was pushed aside. No one asked why he was covered in blood. No one examined the mark burning beneath his skin. A healing assistant glanced at his class emblem and pointed toward the lowest treatment tent. Necromancers wait there. The tent had no priest, no advanced medicine, only old bandages and diluted antiseptic. Kale entered, closed the flap, and sat alone. Then he opened his shadow. The headless executioner rose halfway from the darkness. Its broad shoulders nearly touched the roof. Kale placed a hand against its chest. The connection sharpened. He sensed the structure of the undead. Bone, soul, death energy, a damaged memory core, a command seal. The executioner retained raw strength but almost no intelligence. It understood simple orders. Guard, strike, carry, kill. Aldrin was far more complex. The knight possessed discipline, tactical instinct, and fragments of identity. The skeletal hounds retained hunting patterns. The archers remembered distance and formation. His authority did not create empty puppets. It preserved whatever the dead had carved deepest into themselves. Kale looked at the system message hovering in the darkness. Current command capacity depends upon soul strength. Lesser undead consume minimal authority. Intelligent undead require individual bonds. Overextension may cause soul fracture. He tested the limit. One hound emerged. Then another. 3 archers followed. The executioner stood behind them. A pressure tightened around Kale's skull. Manageable. He summoned Aldrin. The pressure doubled. The knight knelt. Kale's vision blurred for a moment, but the bond remained stable. 6 active servants. He attempted to call one of the shattered soul fragments from the grave warden. Pain stabbed through his temple. The fragment collapsed before taking form. Kale dismissed it immediately. The pressure faded. So the limit is not a fixed number. Aldrin lifted his head. Kale paced slowly through the cramped tent. It depends on quality. The knight's blue eyes flickered. Agreement. Kale studied the bonds further. Distance weakened nothing while the undead remained inside his shadow. Once summoned, each servant needed a connection to receive commands. Simple orders could persist beyond his direct range. Complex commands required proximity or an intelligent commander. Kale looked at Aldrin. Can you command them? The knight rose. He turned toward the lesser undead. No words left his mouth. Yet every servant straightened. The hounds lowered their bodies. The archers shifted into a defensive line. The executioner moved behind them. A formation. Kale's mouth curved slightly. Aldrin was not merely strong. He reduced the mental burden of controlling the army. That made him more valuable than dozens of mindless corpses. A commander. The first pillar of a hierarchy. Kale dismissed the others and kept Aldrin present. Show me what you retained. The knight gripped his broken spear. Blue fire flowed along the shaft. The rust vanished. The weapon's edge sharpened. A skill name entered Kale's mind. Gray fire reinforcement. Aldrin could burn stored death energy to strengthen his weapon and armor. The effect was temporary. The cost was high, but the skill could evolve. Kale felt another seal beneath it. A stronger technique waited behind the knight's damaged soul. Aldrin needed battle. He needed refined death energy. He needed a better vessel. Kale had all 3 waiting inside the dungeon. The academy would close the gate after the reward was registered. That gave Kale one night. He bound his wound properly, stole a dark cloak from an unattended supply crate, and slipped out through the rear of the camp. No one stopped him. Everyone was still gathered around Darius. The instructors had placed the black crystal inside a ritual circle. Darius sat proudly at its center. Mira stood beside him. Kale paused behind a row of wagons. The crystal floated above Darius's hands. Black light entered his veins. The crowd gasped. A system projection formed in the air. Class evolution in progress. Darius laughed. The black line beneath his skin spread toward his elbow. Mira squeezed his shoulder. You did it. Kale turned away. Not yet. The dungeon gate was guarded by 2 academy soldiers. Cal released one skeletal hound into the trees. It circled behind the camp and dragged a dead boar from a refuse pit. Then it tore the carcass open. The smell reached the guards. One cursed and went to investigate. Kale sent the second hound toward the merchant carts. Crates toppled. Glass shattered. The remaining guard ran toward the noise. Kale entered the dungeon unseen. Darkness swallowed him. The moment the gate closed, he summoned Aldrin. The knight led the way. They returned to the guardian chamber first. Kale extracted the remaining stable fragments. 2 bone soldiers formed. Then a crawling creature made from fused arms. Ugly, slow, nearly useless in combat. But when Kale ordered it to climb the wall, it moved with terrifying speed. A scout. He stored it. They continued deeper. The dungeon should have been empty after the boss's death. It was not. Creatures had begun crawling from cracks in the lower tunnels. Grave mites. Corpse rats. Blind scavengers swollen with death energy. Weak monsters. Perfect materials. Kyle did not fight them himself. He sent the skeletal hounds. The first hound tore through a rat's neck. The second pinned a grave mite. The archers finished it with bone arrows. Each kill released a thread of dark energy. Part entered the undead. Part entered Kale. The hound's bones hardened. Their claws lengthened. The archer's movements became smoother. Growth through battle. Kale killed continuously. He tested everything. A corpse more than several hours old produced a weaker servant. A destroyed head did not matter if the soul remained intact. A damaged soul created unstable undead. Monster instincts were easier to preserve than human memories. Named servants could absorb a portion of death energy from nearby kills. Lesser undead could be repaired by feeding them bones from similar creatures. When one skeletal hound lost a leg, Kale attached the limb of a corpse rat. The result was grotesque. The hound rejected it. Then the authority responded. Compatible remains may be merged through sacrifice. Kale placed 3 corpse rats beside the wounded hound. Merge. Black veins spread across the floor. The rat corpses dissolved. Their bones wrapped around the hound's missing limb. Its body expanded. A second layer of ribs formed around its chest. Its jaw split wider. The blue flame in its eyes turned green. Evolution condition partially fulfilled. Bonehound has evolved into Carrion Fang. The creature lowered its head. Its new limb ended in hooked claws. Kale named it Ash. The hound's tail struck the floor once. Not affection. Recognition. Ash became faster, more durable, capable of tracking blood through stone. The second hound watched. Kale sensed hunger through the bond. Even the dead desired growth. Good. An army without ambition was only a pile of bones. He continued hunting. By the time he reached the sealed corridor, his shadow held several bone soldiers, 4 archers, 2 scouts, the executioner, Ash, the second hound, and Aldrin. The burden pressed against his mind. Aldrin absorbed part of the command load. The hierarchy worked. Kale placed the knight above the lesser soldiers. The hounds operated as hunters. The archers obeyed formation commands. The scouts moved independently. The executioner became a breaker. An army was beginning to take shape. Small, crude, but organized. Kale stopped before the dragon's wall. The symbols near the floor glowed. Aldrin walked forward. The knight placed one fist against his chest. Then he knelt, not to Kale, to the corpse beyond the wall. A title entered Kale's thoughts. The Black Sovereign of Ruin. The Dragon King who devoured 7 armies. A creature ranked beyond anything the Academy had ever recorded. Kale's authority trembled with desire. Extract it. Claim it. Command it. The impulse was overwhelming. He suppressed it. Not yet. The wall answered with a slow heartbeat. Dead flesh should not have a heartbeat. The stone began to crack. Kale raised one hand. Every undead formed around him. Aldrin stood at the front. Ash bared its fangs. The executioner lifted its cleaver. The crack widened. A stream of black mist escaped. Inside it floated a single dragon scale. The scale struck the floor. A shockwave threw the lesser undead backward. Aldrin remained standing, barely. Kale approached the scale. The system reacted. Dragon King remnant detected. Absorption may strengthen one undead servant. Failure may destroy the servant permanently. Kale looked at Aldrin. The knight's soul seal burned. A memory passed between them. Aldrin beneath red snow. A black dragon descending from the sky. The knight raising his spear, not in defiance, in loyalty. Aldrin had once served the Dragon King. That was why his soul had survived inside the Grave Warden. That was why the sealed corpse had awakened. Kale picked up the scale. Can you endure it? Aldrin planted his spear into the ground. Then he knelt. Kale pressed the scale against the hole in the knight's chest. Black fire erupted. Aldrin's armor shattered. His bones cracked. The blue flames in his eyes vanished. For several breaths, nothing moved. Then darkness poured into the empty armor. The knight rose. He was taller now. Black scales covered one arm. A horn curved from the side of his helmet. Gray fire burned from the gap in his chest. The broken spear transformed into a dark lance. The system announced the evolution. Elite Undead awakened. Aldrin Vale has evolved into a Dragon Grave Knight. Commander authority strengthened. Draconic resistance acquired. Grey fire has evolved into Ruin Flame. Kale felt the burden of the entire army lesson. Aldrin turned toward him. The evolved knight lowered his lance. Then the first elite undead of Kale's new empire bowed. Far above them, inside the academy camp, Darius screamed. The black crystal had fused with his palm. Mira tried to pull it away. The moment her fingers touched his blood, the crystal opened like an eye. Darius's scream reached every tent in the academy camp. The black crystal had melted through his glove and fused with the bones of his palm. He clawed at it with his free hand. The surface split. Something inside looked back. Not an eye made of flesh. A vertical flame burned beneath the crystal, narrow and red, turning slowly toward every person gathered around the ritual circle. The instructors froze. Mira staggered away. Darius screamed again as black veins crawled past his elbow. The crystal released a pulse. Every torch in the camp died. For one breath, the night became absolute. Then the darkness whispered. Bearer recognized. Gate blood accepted. Vessel preparation initiated. Darius heard the message. No one else did. When the torches reignited, he forced himself to stop screaming. Dozens of students were watching. Guild representatives were watching. The same people who had praised him moments earlier now stared with uncertainty. He could not allow fear to replace admiration. Darius raised his arm. The crystal remained embedded in his palm, but he curled his fingers around it and smiled through clenched teeth. The catalyst is merging with me. An instructor stepped forward. That reaction does not resemble any class evolution recorded by the Academy. Darius lifted his chin. Then it must be a hidden class. Whispers spread. Hidden class. The words were enough. Suspicion became envy. Fear became excitement. The guild representatives leaned closer. Mira recovered first. She seized Darius's wrist and raised it toward the crowd. You are witnessing the birth of a legendary hunter. The students erupted. Darius smiled. Blood ran from his fingertips. Far beneath the camp, Kale felt the stolen crystal feeding. Not on mana, on pride. The more Darius claimed ownership, the deeper the curse settled into his soul. Kale stood before the cracked dragon seal with Aldrin beside him. The evolved knight's ruined flame burned without heat. Its dark glow revealed a narrow passage behind the broken wall. The corridor beyond sloped downward. No dungeon map showed it. No academy record mentioned it. Cold air breathed from the depths. Kale sent the fused arm scout ahead. The creature crawled across the ceiling, fingers digging into stone. Through the command bond, Kale saw what it saw. Walls carved with dead dragons. Knights offering their hearts to a crowned beast. Cities kneeling beneath black wings. Then the scout reached a doorway. A silver chain flashed. The creature was cut into pieces. The command bond snapped. Kale felt no grief, only information. A trap triggered by movement above the threshold. He summoned a bone soldier and ordered it forward. The soldier stepped over the scattered remains. Nothing happened. The trap had reset, but it did not target the floor. Kale studied the carvings. Dragons flew. Knights walked. Servants crawled. The trial punished those who tried to rise above their place. He ordered the army to lower their heads. Kale entered last. The silver chain remained still. The passage opened into a vast underground valley. Dead trees covered the slopes. Their branches held armored corpses instead of leaves. A river of gray mist flowed through the center. Beyond it stood a ruined fortress built from dragon ribs. The academy dungeon had only been a shell. This was the true domain buried beneath it. A system warning appeared. Forbidden zone discovered. The Valley of Broken Oaths. Living creatures who enter will be marked by the dead. Extraction success increased. Soul corruption increased. Retreat recommended. Kyle dismissed the warning. The valley contained thousands of corpses. That made it dangerous. It also made it his. He descended the slope. The first corpse fell from a tree before he reached the river. It wore the armor of an ancient lancer. Its neck was broken. Its eyes were empty. When its boots touched the ground, the other bodies began to move. Hundreds of heads turned. Rust flaked from old blades. Dead fingers tightened around weapons. These were not masterless corpses. A foreign command held them. Kale felt it pressing against his authority. A challenge. The valley's dead did not attack immediately. They waited. Something inside the fortress was watching him through every hollow eye. Kale raised one hand. Do not destroy the skulls. Aldrin charged. The Dragon Grave Knight crossed the river in a burst of black fire. His lance pierced the first lancer's chest and hurled it into the ranks behind. Ash sprinted beside him. The evolved hound tore through ankles, dragging armored corpses into the mist. Bone archers climbed the slope and formed staggered lines. The executioner advanced through the center. Its cleaver rose. Armor split. Bodies fell. Kale walked behind them. He did not waste mana on dramatic commands. Aldrin controlled the formation. Ash marked isolated targets. The archers fired only when their shots could disable without shattering the soul vessels. The executioner broke shields. The battle became a harvest. Every corpse that fell entered Kale's reach. Extract. Black smoke erupted from the ground. Some souls resisted. Kale crushed them. Others recognized his authority and submitted instantly. Ancient soldiers rose behind him. The valley's army attacked from the front. Kale's army grew from its dead. The enemy realized the danger. Its tactics changed. Corpses began dragging their fallen comrades away. Archers turned their shots toward damaged skulls. The unseen commander was destroying its own troops to deny Kale resources. Intelligent, ruthless, worth taking. Kale accelerated. He divided the army. Aldrin led the vanguard. Ash and the remaining bone hounds circled through the dead forest. The archers climbed the trees and targeted enemy joints. The executioner guarded Kale. Newly extracted soldiers formed the rear. Their equipment was ancient, but their instincts remained sharp. Kale grouped them by function. Shield bearers became the bone wall. Lancers became the grave line. Archers joined the pale choir. Fast corpses with daggers sank into the mist and became the first shadow hunters. A bloated war beast emerged from the river. It had once resembled a bear. Now dragon bones had been driven through its spine. 4 dead knights were fused into its shoulders, each wielding a hooked chain. It charged through the bone wall. Shields exploded. Kale did not retreat. He watched the creature's steps. The left rear leg struck the ground too deeply. The fused knights pulled in different rhythms. Its power came from forced coordination. Break the rhythm, break the beast. Kale ordered the pale choir to fire at the chains. Bone arrows struck the hooks. Ash leaped onto the creature's back and bit through the exposed spine. The beast twisted. The 4 knights pulled against one another. Aldrin appeared beneath its chest. His lance ignited. Ruin flame erupted upward. The war beast split open. Kale placed his hand against its skull before it hit the ground. Submit. The soul roared. He saw hunger, chains, centuries of pain. A beast forced to carry human corpses until it forgot its own shape. Kale did not soothe it. He offered direction. Hunt for me, and nothing will chain you again. The soul stopped resisting. Black mist wrapped around the remains. The fused knights tore free and collapsed. The beast's bones reassembled. Dragon spines became armor. The extra limbs vanished. Its body shrank, then hardened. When the mist cleared, a massive undead predator stood before Kyle. It resembled a bear only in outline. Its skull was draconic. Black hooks curved from its shoulders. Gray fire leaked from between its ribs. Kale named it Graven. The beast lowered its head once. A siege hunter, strong enough to break gates, fast enough to chase cavalry. The army advanced. Hours lost meaning beneath the dead sky. Kale hunted without rest. His authority expanded with every conquered soul. The pressure against his mind became sharper, but Aldrin carried more of the command burden. The Dragon Grave Knight began issuing silent orders before Kale needed to speak. A damaged shield unit rotated out. Fresh corpses replaced it. Archers moved to higher ground. Shadow hunters slipped through cracks in the fortress walls. The army stopped behaving like summons. It behaved like a military organism. By the time Kale reached the Dragon Rib Fortress, the valley behind him had gone quiet. The corpses no longer hung from the trees. They marched beneath his shadow. His forces now included the Bone Wall, the Grave Line, the Pale Choir, a pack of corpse beasts, a group of mist-walking assassins, and several heavy undead carrying pieces of ruined siege weapons. Not all were strong. Not all would survive. But every battle created better material. Kale looked toward the fortress gate. A crown had been nailed above it. Not a king's crown. A restraint. Silver spikes pierced black bone. Chains extended from it into the fortress. The foreign command originated there. Aldrin approached and knelt. A memory crossed the bond. The crown belonged to the Dragon King's jailer, a human warlord who had betrayed his master, stolen a fragment of draconic authority, and enslaved the dead guardians of the valley. The warlord's name had been erased. Only his title remained, the Oath Eater. Kale touched the gate. A voice entered his mind. Kneel, inheritor. Kale smiled. The gate opened. Inside, thousands of candles burned with blue flame. A throne stood at the far end of the hall. A corpse sat upon it. The body wore white armor. Its face was hidden behind a mask stitched from dragon skin. Silver chains passed through its shoulders, spine, wrists, and throat. The black crown floated above its head. Around the throne lay piles of shattered weapons. Every weapon belonged to a challenger who had entered the valley and failed. The corpse lifted one finger. Kale's newly raised soldiers turned on him. The bone wall rotated. The grave line lowered its lances. The pale choir drew arrows. The foreign command had reclaimed them. Only Aldrin, Ash, Graven, the executioner, and the undead created before entering the valley remained loyal. The Oath Eater's voice scraped through the hall. You borrow the dead and mistake obedience for ownership. Kale studied the chains. The crown controlled every corpse raised within the valley. Destroying it might free them. Attacking it directly would trigger the army. The Oath Eater expected a contest of strength. Kale gave him none. He dismissed every stolen soldier. The hall filled with black smoke. The foreign command pulled against Kale's authority, but Kale did not try to retain control. He released them willingly. The army collapsed into corpses. The Oath Eater's finger twitched. Surprise! Kale had surrendered most of his force without hesitation. He sent Ash left, Graven right. The executioner charged the center. The Oath Eater raised one hand. The dead army rose again, this time under his complete control. Thousands of corpses flooded the hall. The executioner disappeared beneath them. Ash was driven behind a pillar. Graven roared as chains wrapped around its legs. Aldrin remained beside Kale. The Oath Eater laughed. You came to claim an empire and abandoned it at the first command. Kale looked at the corpses. The crown controlled bodies, not souls. His extraction authority had already marked every spirit he had conquered. Releasing the physical servants had not broken those marks. It had only removed the contested vessels. Kale extended his hand. Return. The souls tore themselves out. Black fire erupted from thousands of corpses at once. The Oath Eater jerked against the throne. His army stopped moving. Ghostly shapes flooded toward Kale's shadow. The bodies fell empty. The crown's chains snapped taut. It tried to pull the souls back. Kale had expected that. Aldrin, the Dragon Grave Knight, vanished. He appeared above the throne and drove his lance through the crown. Ruin flame spread across the silver spikes. The artifact screamed. Not metaphorically. Faces emerged across its surface, shrieking as the stolen oaths inside it burned. The Oath Eater rose for the first time. The chains through his body broke. His presence crushed the hall. He was not an ordinary undead. His soul had fused with the fortress itself. Walls bent around him. Weapons lifted from the floor. Every broken blade flew toward Kale. Graven tore free and threw itself into their path. Metal buried itself in the siege hunter's body. Ash leaped between pillars and attacked the Oath Eater's exposed back. The warlord caught the hound by the throat and hurled it through a wall. Kale did not rush forward. He watched. Every attack caused the fortress candles to dim. The Oath Eater drew power from the blue flames. Each flame was connected to a chain beneath the floor. The crown was only a focus. The fortress was the true vessel. Kale ordered the mist assassins outside to attack the foundations. They had remained hidden when he dismissed the army, their bodies stored within the river mist. They slipped beneath the fortress. One by one, the chains below were cut. The candles went dark. The Oath Eater slowed. Aldrin's lance struck his shoulder. Graven slammed into his legs. Ash emerged from the rubble and bit through his sword arm. Kale finally moved. He crossed the hall while the warlord fought his elite undead. The Oath Eater turned. You think this makes you king? No. Kale placed one hand against the dragon. Skin mask. It makes you material. Sovereign extraction flooded the corpse. The Oath Eater resisted. Memories crashed into Kale. A knight kneeling before the Dragon King. A promise of eternal loyalty. A secret offer from terrified human rulers. A crown forged to enslave his master. betrayal, triumph, then horror when the Dragon King cursed him to guard the prison forever. The Oath Eater had not ruled the valley. He had been trapped inside his own victory. Kale tightened his grip. You betrayed a king for a cage. The soul cracked. No? You chained the dead because none would follow you willingly. The mask split. You know nothing of kings. Kale's eyes remained cold. A king does not need to say he is one. The extraction completed. The throne shattered. Black energy exploded through the fortress. The Oath Eater's armor collapsed empty. The crown fell. Kale caught it before it touched the floor. The silver spikes melted. The black bone beneath them reshaped into a narrow circlet. System notifications filled the hall. Hidden trial completed. Authority of the valley claimed. Shadow storage expanded. Soul command strengthened. Undead evolution unlocked through bloodline sacrifice. Inheritance fragment acquired. The crown of broken oaths recognizes a new master. Kale placed the circlet against his forehead. It dissolved into shadow. The entire valley trembled. Every corpse outside turned toward the fortress. Kale felt them. Not as individuals. As territory. Any suitable corpse within the valley could now answer his call. Death energy flowed through the river like blood through veins. The fortress became a storage chamber. The dead forest became a surveillance network. The valley had accepted him. At the center of the ruined throne, a compartment opened. Inside rested a black heart. It was larger than a human skull. Hard scales covered its surface. A faint beat moved through it. Dragon bloodline detected. Not the sealed Dragon King's heart. A lesser fragment. Still powerful enough to evolve an elite servant. Kale looked at Aldrin. The knight had already received one dragon remnant. Forcing another might damage his foundation. He looked at Ash. The hound needed speed, not overwhelming bloodline power. Graven possessed the strongest compatible body. But the heart contained intelligence. A commander's instinct. A siege beast would waste it. Kale turned toward the empty armor of the Oath Eater. The extracted soul floated above it, cracked but intact. He could destroy the traitor. He could reduce him to a low servant. Or he could strip away the disloyalty and preserve the knowledge. Kale placed the dragon heart inside the armor. Then he forced the extracted soul into it. Merge. The fortress shook. Black flesh spread beneath white metal. The armor expanded. A horned helmet formed. Chains wrapped around a massive spear. The soul resisted until Kale burned the memory of betrayal out of it. Pride remained. Tactical knowledge remained. Centuries of command remained. But the part that bowed to greed was gone. Blue fire ignited inside the helmet. The new undead stepped from the shattered throne. Its presence silenced every corpse in the valley. The system revealed its rank. Commander-class undead awakened. Oathbreaker General. The towering warrior opened his eyes. Then he lowered his spear, dropped to one knee, and bowed before Kale. The Oathbreaker General remained kneeling while the Valley of Broken Oaths bowed with him. Across the dead forest, corpses lowered rusted weapons. The gray river stopped flowing. Blue flames died inside the ruined fortress. For the first time in centuries, the entire underground domain became silent. Kale studied his new commander. The undead general stood nearly twice the height of an ordinary man. White armor enclosed his body, but black scales had grown beneath the plates. Broken chains wrapped around his spear. Every link contained the remnant of an oath once stolen from another soul. The name Oathbreaker was not merely symbolic. He could sense promises, contracts, betrayals. He could weaken anyone who violated a sworn agreement near him. More importantly, he remembered how the fortress worked. Kale placed one hand on the general's helmet. Memories flowed through the bond. Hidden chambers beneath the throne. Soul furnaces inside the walls. Burial fields beyond the dead forest. Defensive formations carved beneath the river. A sealed forge built to shape dragon bone. The valley was not just a tomb, it was a military base. An empire had once prepared for war here. Kale withdrew his hand. Rise. The Oathbreaker General obeyed. Aldrin watched him without hostility, but ruined flame burned brighter along his lance. The two commanders recognized each other. One had remained loyal to the Dragon King until death. The other had betrayed him and lost the part of his soul that made betrayal possible. Their conflict had not vanished. Kale did not need it to vanish. Rivalry created pressure. Pressure created growth. He assigned Aldrin command of the mobile forces. The Oathbreaker General received control over the fortress, heavy infantry, and defensive formations. Neither commander objected. The hierarchy settled into place. Kale walked onto the shattered throne platform. The moment his foot touched its center, black lines spread through the floor. The fortress awakened. Bone pillars rose from collapsed walls. Cracks sealed beneath layers of hardened marrow. Broken towers pulled themselves upright. Dragon ribs shifted, locking together like the teeth of a colossal beast. Outside, the gray river reversed direction. Death energy flowed toward the fortress. It entered channels beneath the floor and gathered inside a hollow chamber below the throne. The system responded. A necromancer domain may be established. A domain requires an anchor, a sovereign mark, a stable source of death energy. The valley possessed all three. Kale pressed his palm against the broken throne. Claim. Pain stabbed through his hand. His blood struck the black stone. The entire fortress convulsed. Shadows burst from every doorway. The dead trees bent toward him. Thousands of buried bones shifted beneath the soil. A dark emblem formed above the throne, a crown surrounded by dragon wings. Then the emblem sank into the stone. Domain established. The Valley of Broken Oaths has become the Grave Dominion. Within the Dominion, death energy will regenerate naturally. Unclaimed corpses may be awakened at reduced cost. Bound undead recover from damage over time. Hostile souls may be detected. Intruders carrying murderous intent will be marked. Kyle felt the territory spread through his senses. Every tree became an eye. Every buried skull became an ear. The river became a vein carrying power from one end of the valley to the other. He sensed the academy camp far above. Boots crossing the dungeon entrance. Healers packing equipment. Instructors arguing over Darius's transformation. And at the center of it all, the stolen crystal continued feeding. Kale could not hear exact words from that distance. He did not need to. The mark connecting him to the crystal revealed enough. Darius felt stronger. The curse was rewarding him. That was how intelligent traps worked. They did not begin with pain. They began with gifts. Kale turned away from the surface. He had a fortress to rebuild. The Oathbreaker General led him through a passage behind the throne. A spiral staircase descended into darkness. The walls were covered with metal plaques. Each plaque held a name. Some belonged to knights, some to dragons, some to kings. All had sworn loyalty inside the fortress. Most had broken it. The general paused before one plaque. Its name had been scratched away. Kale sensed shame through the bond. He continued walking. The past was only valuable when it could be weaponized. At the bottom of the staircase waited a circular chamber. A furnace stood in the center. Its mouth resembled a dragon's skull. Cold blue fire burned inside. Piles of broken armor surrounded it. Bone ingots rested on stone shelves. Tools made from fangs and claws hung along the walls. The forge had no living craftsman. Yet when Kale approached, skeletal hands emerged from the floor. They lifted hammers, prepared molds, sorted materials. The fortress itself remembered how to build. A system message appeared. Dragon Bone Forge restored. Available functions include armor repair, corpse reinforcement, weapon fusion, bone refinement, and limited vessel reconstruction. Every function requires death energy and compatible remains. Kale summoned his damaged undead. The executioner emerged first. Its chest had been crushed during the battle against the Oath Eater. One arm hung by a strip of black sinew. Kale placed it beside the forge. Skeletal hands pulled the servant apart. Bones entered the blue fire. The executioner did not resist. Its soul remained suspended above the furnace while the vessel was rebuilt. Kale added the remains of several ancient shield bearers. The forge melted them together. A broader ribcage formed. Layered bones covered the shoulders. The ruined cleaver fused with fragments of fortress metal. When the servant stepped out, it no longer looked like a mindless headsman. A tower shield had grown from one arm. The cleaver in the other had become thick enough to split a gate. The system recognized the change. Heavy undead evolved. The nameless executioner has become the Bastion Reaper. Kale did not give it a personal name. Not yet. Names were rewards. Identity strengthened the bond, but it also increased the soul burden. The Bastion Reaper had power. It had obedience. It had not yet shown distinction. Kale ordered it to guard the forge. Next came Graven. Broken swords still protruded from the siege hunter's body. The forge removed them. Dragon bone plates replaced shattered ribs. The hooks on its shoulders became retractable chains. When the process ended, Graven released a low growl. The sound shook dust from the ceiling. Its roll sharpened. Siege assault. Heavy pursuit. Fortress defense. Ash entered next. Kale fed the forge remains from mist assassins and corpse wolves found beneath the dead forest. The hound's green eyes closed. Its skeleton dissolved into smoke. For one dangerous moment, the bond nearly disappeared. Then the smoke condensed. Ash stepped from the furnace without making a sound. Its bones had turned black. Mist poured from its paws. Its body vanished whenever it passed through shadow. The system announced another evolution. Carrion Fang has evolved into Duskhound. Blood tracking strengthened. Shadow movement acquired. Pack authority awakened. Ash raised its skull. Across the Dominion, lesser corpse beasts answered. Their howls rolled through the valley. Kale had his first beast commander. The army was no longer expanding only through numbers. It was developing organs. Commanders served as the mind. Specialized units became limbs. The domain became the body. Kale would become the will controlling all of it. He spent the remaining hours exploring. Beneath the fortress, he discovered burial chambers filled with failed dragon soldiers. Some corpses were unusable. Their souls had decayed. Others retained enough instinct to become guards. He raised only those worth the cost. Wasteful necromancers animated everything they found. Kyle selected. A weak corpse consumed attention, space, and death energy. An army filled with useless servants became a burden. He extracted rare traits from unsuitable remains instead. A dead scout surrendered night vision. A broken priest retained resistance to curses. A beast handler preserved a calming aura that could stabilize unstable undead. Kale stored these fragments inside black soul crystals formed by the domain. They would become materials for future evolution. Near the eastern wall, he found an underground garden. Nothing living grew there. Pale flowers opened around buried skulls. Their roots drank memories. When touched, the flowers whispered the final thoughts of the dead. The Oathbreaker general identified them as mourning lilies. Alchemy guilds would kill for a single petal. Kale stood before a field containing thousands. The outside world fought over diluted mana herbs. His domain quietly produced plants capable of preserving memories and strengthening souls. He ordered several undead attendants to harvest only the mature flowers. Destroying the roots would reduce future yields. Power meant little without sustainability. At the northern edge of the valley stood a cavern sealed by a wall of frozen blood. Aldrin stopped before it. Ruined flame dimmed. The Oathbreaker general lowered his spear. Both commanders recognized what lay beyond. Kyle touched the frozen surface. A heartbeat answered. Not the Dragon King. Something else. A creature carrying holy power corrupted by death. The system delivered a warning. Legendary corpse detected. Identity partially sealed. Living name lost. Former title recognized. Saint of the Last Dawn. Kale saw fragments through the ice. A woman in shattered golden armor. 6 wings pinned to the ground by black spears. A halo broken around her throat like a collar. Her body had not decayed. Dark veins spread beneath pale skin. One eye was open. The iris had turned white. The corpse was dead. The thing trapped inside it was not fully asleep. Kale could extract her. The domain strengthened his authority enough to attempt it. But the soul carried divine contamination. Failure might spread holy fire through every undead connected to him. Success would give him a servant capable of healing damaged souls. A resource more valuable than thousands of ordinary soldiers. Kyle did not touch the seal again. He studied it. The frozen blood contained 7 locking points. 6 were connected to the spears pinning her wings. The final lock was attached to the broken halo. Removing the spears first would awaken the corruption. Breaking the halo first would destroy the soul. The correct method required separating divine power from the corpse while keeping both intact. He lacked the necessary tool. For now. Kale turned to Aldrin. Guard this cavern. The knight planted his lance before the seal. Nothing would enter. Nothing would leave. The Saint of the Last Dawn could wait until Kale was certain of victory. Above the dungeon, dawn arrived. Academy soldiers sealed the entrance. They believed the dungeon had been cleared. Kale used the domain's shadow paths to return unseen. He emerged through a burial pit beyond the camp. His cloak hid the blood on his clothes. The wound beneath his bandages had closed, though black veins remained around it. Death energy had preserved him. It had not healed him. He would need a real recovery method before the corrosion reached his organs. Another reason the sealed saint mattered. The camp had changed. Banners bearing the Iron Crest emblem hung near the central platform. Merchants offered drinks in Darius's honor. Guild representatives waited for private meetings. Students repeated the story of his legendary awakening. With every retelling, Kale's role became smaller. Soon, he would vanish from the story completely. Darius stood before the crowd wearing new armor. The black crystal remained fused to his palm, hidden beneath a golden gauntlet. A dark aura surrounded him. Its pressure was genuine. The curse had raised his physical strength and mana capacity. An instructor announced his new class, Abyss Champion. The crowd cheered. Kale watched from behind a supply cart. Darius raised his hand. Black fire formed above his palm. The flames took the shape of a dragon's head. Mira looked at him as though he had become a god. He surpassed every elite student overnight. A nearby healer shook her head in disbelief. Perhaps Ironcrest will become the Academy's strongest team. Kale examined the flame. It was not draconic power. It was a signal. The crystal was teaching Darius to imitate the creature sealed behind the gate. Every use strengthened the connection. Every public display widened the path. Darius believed he was absorbing the treasure. The treasure was preparing him to be consumed. Kyle stepped into the open. Several students noticed him. Their excitement became laughter. The grave rat came back. Did he hide all night because Darius took the catalyst? He should thank the team for letting him survive. Mira spotted him. Her expression hardened. She approached with 2 academy guards. You disappeared. I needed air. You left without permission. Kale looked toward Darius. Was anyone searching for me? Mira paused. No one had noticed he was gone. Her irritation deepened because his question exposed it. The Academy is reviewing the raid, she said. Darius has agreed to distribute the rewards fairly. Behind her, attendants carried boxes toward the Iron Crest wagons. Weapons, mana crystals, rare materials. Everything recovered from the dungeon had been placed under Darius's name. Mira held out a small pouch. This is your share. Kale opened it. Inside were several low-grade coins and a cracked mana stone. The crowd watched. Darius approached with an expression of practiced concern. We considered your limited contribution and the danger you caused by touching the catalyst. Kyle closed the pouch. Of course. Darius smiled. I knew you would understand. Kale handed the pouch back. Use it for your treatment. The surrounding students laughed. Darius's smile tightened. My treatment? Kale glanced at the golden gauntlet. Your hand is bleeding. Silence fell. A drop of black blood slid from beneath the metal. Darius quickly closed his fist. Mira stepped between them. The catalyst is still merging with him. Kale nodded. Then I hope it finishes soon. He walked away. Darius watched him leave. Suspicion entered his eyes for the first time. Then the crystal pulsed beneath his glove. A voice whispered directly into his mind. The marked sacrifice remains alive. Complete the gate bond. Offer the original bearer's blood. Receive the power of the Dragon King. Darius stared at Kale's back. Greed crushed suspicion. Mira touched his shoulder. What is it? Darius's black veins spread beneath his collar. He hid them with a smile. Nothing. Deep inside the grave dominion, every dead tree suddenly turned toward the eastern wall. The gray river surged. Warning bells formed from bone and began ringing across the fortress. Kale stopped walking. Through the domain, he sensed thousands of creatures moving beneath the earth, not toward the Academy dungeon. Beyond it, toward the nearest human city, a tide of monsters crawled through forgotten tunnels. At their center moved something enormous. Something carrying the scent of the stolen crystal. The Oathbreaker general lowered his spear from the fortress wall. Aldrin's ruin flame ignited beside the frozen saint. Ash appeared atop the dead forest, leading a pack of shadow beasts. The Grave Dominion had detected its first war, and the approaching horde was large enough to bury a kingdom. The first monster surfaced beneath St. Varen's central market. The pavement bulged. Merchants stopped shouting. A child pointed at the ground. Then the street exploded. A worm covered in human teeth burst through the stone and swallowed an entire carriage. Its body twisted between market stalls, crushing vendors beneath shattered wood. Black saliva burned through armor. Every wound along its flesh released pale insects that crawled into the mouths of the dead. Panic spread faster than fire. People ran toward the Academy district. They believed the hunters would protect them. They believed Darius Holt would protect them. His face hung from banners across the city. The Academy had already named him the hero of Abyss. News crystals replayed his black dragon flame in every tavern and plaza. Guildmasters praised his courage. Priests called his awakening a blessing. Noble families competed to invite him to private banquets. Ironcrest had become famous overnight. Mira stood beside Darius during every interview. She described how he had carried the raid team through the dungeon. She claimed he had defeated the Grave Warden. She said Kale had panicked, abandoned formation, and nearly killed everyone by touching a forbidden artifact. The lie grew with each retelling. Kale became jealous, then cowardly, then unstable. By noon, he was accused of stealing supplies. By evening, an academy official announced that his actions were under investigation. No evidence was required. The city wanted a hero. A hero needed a failure standing beneath him. Kale listened to the accusation from the roof of an abandoned warehouse. Below, workers unloaded crates purchased through false names. Salt, iron, oil, bandages, preserved food, monolamps, alchemy reagents, tools. Everything people ignored while chasing glamorous weapons. A hooded woman checked the inventory beside him. Her name was Lyra Dane. She had once served as an academy logistics officer until she discovered instructors selling student supplies to private guilds. When she reported it, the academy accused her of theft and ruined her career. Kale had found her records inside the camp. More importantly, he had watched her continue distributing medicine to poor hunters after losing her position. Useful, disciplined, angry for the correct reasons. Lyra closed the ledger. This is enough to support a small district for several weeks. It will support the people working for me. She looked toward the city banners. Everyone else? They made their choice. Lyra did not argue. That was why Kale had selected her. She understood that resources given without control became weapons for fools. Kale had recruited only a handful of living followers. Lyra managed supplies. A disgraced runesmith named Bram reinforced the hidden entrances to the Grave Dominion. A mute street scout called Finn mapped the city's tunnels. An alchemist named Celine studied morning lilies and converted diluted petals into soul-restoring medicine. None knew the full scale of Kale's army. They knew only that he had discovered a secure underground refuge. They had proven themselves through action. Lyra had rejected a bribe from Darius's guild. Bram had burned his own workshop rather than surrender the location of the Bone Forge. Finn had allowed academy guards to break his fingers without revealing the warehouse. Celine had tested the first soul medicine on herself. Kale rewarded loyalty. He did not worship it. Every follower carried an Oathbreaker seal. If they betrayed him, the general would know before the lie left their mouths. Kale looked toward the market district. Smoke had begun rising. The first tunnel broke early, Lyra said. No. Kale felt the movement through the Dominion. The monster horde had divided. Several smaller groups were attacking crowded areas. They were not wandering. They were herding the population toward the academy, toward Darius. The stolen crystal wanted witnesses. It wanted fear. It wanted a city filled with fresh blood when the gate opened. Kale had expected this. For days, he had quietly purchased warehouses near the northern wall, the river locks, and the old graveyard. Places everyone considered worthless. Each location sat above a forgotten tunnel connected to the Valley of Broken Oaths. Bram carved defensive runes into the foundations. Lyra filled the buildings with supplies. Finn marked escape routes. Celine placed jars of corpse-repelling incense near every entrance. When the city collapsed, Kale would control the only safe roads. He had also allowed rumors to spread that his purchases were acts of desperation. Students laughed when they heard the trash Necromancer was buying abandoned property. Darius bought a mansion. Kale bought choke points. Mira bought jewelry. Kale bought wells. Ironcrest purchased ceremonial armor. Kale purchased every unclaimed corpse in the city morgue through a burial company that did not exist. The apparent weakling kept surrendering glory. He quietly seized survival. A horn sounded from the academy tower. Then another. The city gates closed. That was the worst decision the officials could have made. Citizens trapped in the streets pushed toward the academy plaza. Hunters formed lines near the central stairway. Darius appeared above them wearing white and gold armor. The black crystal shone through his gauntlet. Cheers erupted. People shouted his title. Hero of the Abyss. Dragon Champion. Future Guild King. Darius raised both hands. Remain calm. His voice carried through amplification runes. I will protect this city. The crowd believed him because they needed to. Mira stood near the academy headmaster. She wore a silver cloak embroidered with the Iron Crest symbol. Behind her waited the raid members who had abandoned Kale. Each had received promotions. Each had repeated the lie. Each now stared at the smoke rising from the market with hidden fear. The ground shook. Buildings leaned. Stone cracked across the plaza. Hunters drew weapons. A wave of corpse rats poured from the alleyways. They climbed walls. They swarmed over carts. They threw themselves beneath armored boots and exploded into clouds of black spores. The first defense line vanished inside the poison. Darius extended his cursed hand. Black fire formed above his palm. The crowd roared when the flame took the shape of a dragon. He launched it. The attack swept through the alley and burned hundreds of monsters. For a moment, the plaza became silent, then applause thundered. Darius laughed. The crystal drove another root through his wrist. Pain flashed across his face. He hid it. Every use of the power widened the connection. Kale watched through the eyes of a dead raven perched on the academy roof. Again, he murmured. Darius unleashed another wave of black fire. More monsters died. More blood soaked the streets. More energy flowed through the crystal. Mira lifted her sword. You see? St. Varen has nothing to fear. The pavement beneath her cracked. A corpse giant erupted from below. Its shoulders tore through the plaza. It wore chains made from human spines. A tower bell had been hammered into its chest. Every movement made the bell ring, releasing waves of soul pressure. Students collapsed. Blood ran from their ears. The giant swung one arm. A row of academy statues shattered. Hunters flew through the air like broken dolls. Darius charged. He wanted the entire city to see him win. Black fire covered his blade. He leaped onto the giant's arm, ran toward its neck, and drove the weapon into its skull. The corpse giant stopped. The crowd held its breath. Darius pulled the blade free. Is that all? The bell inside the giant rang. A second head opened beneath the first. Its jaws closed around Darius. Mira screamed. Darius forced both arms apart and flooded the mouth with black fire. The giant's head exploded. He fell onto the plaza, covered in rotting blood. The people cheered again, but this time, uncertainty poisoned the sound. Darius had won, yet the crystal now covered half his forearm. Its black surface pulsed like exposed flesh. The headmaster saw it. What is happening to your arm? Darius stepped back. The class is evolving. The crystal whispered. More. It showed him an image. A throne. A black dragon kneeling. Kale's corpse beneath his boot. Power beyond rank. Power beyond kings. All he needed was the original bearer's blood. Darius looked across the plaza. Kale was nowhere to be seen. Rage replaced fear. Even now, the trash was trying to steal his moment by hiding. Mira approached. We need to evacuate the civilians. No. She stared at him. Darius raised his cursed hand. If we retreat now, the guilds will say I failed. A nearby instructor heard him. People are dying. They will die faster if they lose faith. It sounded noble. Mira wanted it to be noble. So she nodded. The Iron Crest team formed around him. They advanced deeper into the city while the crowd followed. Every victory drew them closer to the old cathedral district. Every monster seemed to retreat in that direction. Kale watched the pattern. The horde was leading Darius toward the final seal. Beneath the cathedral lay the oldest gate in St. Varen. The academy had built the city around it without understanding its purpose. The sealed Dragon King was not the only ancient corpse beneath the region. Something else had been imprisoned beyond that gate. Something the Dragon King had once fought. Kale had discovered the truth through the Oath Eater's memories. The black crystal was a gate heart. It belonged to the creature beyond the cathedral. The Dragon King's power had sealed it. The crystal had been placed inside the dungeon as bait. Anyone greedy enough to claim it would become a living key. Darius had done exactly what the ancient trap required. Kale could have killed him days ago. He could have removed the crystal. He could have warned the academy. He had done none of those things. The gate could not be destroyed while sealed. It could only be claimed after opening. Kale needed the creature beyond it. Its corpse would become the foundation of his next evolution. Darius was not an enemy anymore. He was a tool carrying itself toward the altar. The cathedral bells began ringing. No one had touched them. The sound rolled across the city. Every corpse rat stopped moving. Every burrowing worm froze. Every monster turned toward the cathedral and lowered its head. The crowd followed Darius into the square. A red line appeared across the cathedral doors. It opened like a wound. The headmaster raised his staff. Everyone retreat. Darius stepped forward. The crystal dragged his arm toward the entrance. He resisted. The entire limb cracked. Black bone pierced through his skin. Mira grabbed him. What is happening? Darius looked at the people watching. He could not admit fear. He could not admit the treasure was controlling him. He forced a smile. The hidden class is guiding me. The crowd whispered. A new trial. A secret inheritance. A final reward. Greed infected them again. Guild representatives pushed closer. Academy instructors stopped ordering retreat. No one wanted to abandon a legendary opportunity. Darius walked through the cathedral doors. Mira followed. Ironcrest followed. The headmaster followed. Then the hunters. Then the civilians who believed standing near heroes would keep them safe. The doors closed behind them. Kale arrived above the square through a shadow path. Lyra stood beside him. Should we open the shelters? Only for those carrying our seals. And the others? Kale looked at the cathedral. They chose their protector. Inside, Darius reached the altar. The cathedral had no statues. No holy symbols. Only a circular pit surrounded by rusted chains. The crystal tore free from his arm. He screamed as skin peeled from bone. The gate heart floated above the pit. Mira caught Darius before he fell. The headmaster stared upward. That is not a class catalyst. The crystal cracked. Red light poured through the cathedral. The walls became transparent. Beyond them waited a landscape of dead suns and mountains made from corpses. Something enormous moved behind the veil. Darius crawled backward. No. The crystal spoke through every mouth in the cathedral. Vessel delivered. Witnesses gathered. Blood sufficient. Gate opening. The floor split. Chains burst from the pit and pierced the crowd. Hunters screamed. Civilians were dragged toward the altar. Guild representatives trampled children trying to escape. Instructors shoved students into the chains to save themselves. The people who had praised honor revealed their true faces in a single breath. Mira pulled Darius toward the door. It would not open. He looked at her. Give me your mana. What? The crystal responds to power. Give me everything. You said you controlled it. I do. A chain pierced the healer behind them. Darius grabbed Mira's wrist. Trust me. She hesitated. Then she obeyed. Mana flowed from her into his ruined arm. The gate heart absorbed it. Darius rose. Black fire covered his body. The crowd saw him standing amid the massacre and screamed for help. He raised both hands. I command this power. The crystal turned toward him. Then it opened completely. The false dragon flame vanished. The cathedral roof exploded. A claw emerged from the gate. It was not draconic. It had too many joints. Human faces covered each talon. The claw struck the floor. Everyone nearby became blood mist. The ancient creature pulled itself into the world. Its body resembled a king built from a battlefield. Broken crowns formed its spine. Thousands of arms hung beneath a cloak made from stitched skin. A horned skull floated where its head should have been. Inside the skull burned the same red eye that had watched through the crystal. The headmaster dropped his staff. The Hell Gate Sovereign. The creature had no recorded rank, no measured limit. Its arrival alone caused weaker hunters to age into corpses. Darius fell to his knees. The gate heart returned to his ruined palm. Chains spread across his chest. The sovereign leaned down. You opened the door well. Darius trembled. I am your chosen vessel. The creature laughed. The sound shattered every window in St. Verin. You are the handle. Mira released him. She stepped away. Darius looked at her. You said we would stand together. Fear erased every promise from her face. She ran. A chain caught her ankle. She fell screaming. Outside the cathedral, the monster horde surged into the city. The academy walls collapsed. The gates burst open. Citizens who had followed the false hero found themselves trapped at the center of the invasion. Kale watched from the roof. The grave dominion pulsed beneath his feet. Aldrin waited in shadow. The Oathbreaker general stood behind an army hidden under the streets. Ash's pack surrounded the escape routes. Graven crouched beneath the northern wall. Every location Kale had purchased was secure. Every preparation was complete. Lyra looked at the creature rising above the cathedral. You knew this would happen. I knew what greed would open. And now? Kale's calm smile returned. Now the corpse is available. The Hellgate Sovereign turned. Its red eye passed over the screaming city. Then it stopped on Kale. The ancient monster ignored Darius. Ignored the headmaster. Ignored every hunter begging inside the cathedral. It looked directly across the distance. Recognition entered its burning eye. At last, The sovereign spoke Kale's name. Kale Vane, I have waited 1,000 deaths for you. The Hellgate sovereign spoke Kale's name, and the entire city heard it. Its voice rolled through broken streets. Windows shattered, towers split. The surviving hunters inside the cathedral stared toward the distant rooftop where Kyle stood. For several breaths, no one understood. Then Darius began laughing. It was a desperate sound. Wild. Cracked. You know him? The sovereign's red eye remained fixed on Kale. Darius dragged himself upright, black chains grinding through his chest. He is nothing. A failed necromancer. A disposable support hunter. The creature slowly lowered its horned skull. The air around Darius became heavy enough to crack the floor. Nothing? Darius's smile vanished. The sovereign lifted one claw and pointed across the ruined city. Then why does death itself follow his shadow? Every corpse in St. Verin turned its head. Thousands of dead merchants, students, guards, hunters, and civilians moved at once. Some lay beneath rubble. Some hung from chains. Some had already been half consumed by monsters, their eyes opened. Not with Kale's blue grave fire. With the sovereign's red flame, the ancient creature raised its arms. The dead began crawling toward the cathedral. A mother dragged herself across broken stone with one leg missing. A guard pulled a spear from his own chest and pointed it at the people he had died defending. Children rose beneath overturned wagons. Hunters staggered upright with their weapons still embedded in their bodies. The crowd screamed. They pushed toward sealed doors. They trampled the injured. They begged Darius to stop the dead. He stared at the approaching corpses. The gate heart pulsed in his palm. Power moved through him, but it was not his to command. He threw black fire into the street. The flames struck a group of corpses. They burned. Then they continued walking. Darius stepped back. That attack killed the grave warden. Kale heard him through the dead ravens circling above the square. The lie had become so familiar that Darius now believed it. The Hellgate sovereign spread its cloak. The thousands of arms beneath it stretched towards St. Verin. Each hand opened a wound in the air. More monsters poured through. Skinless wolves. Blind giants carrying cages of screaming souls. Flying corpses stitched from priests. Armored demons with mouths in their shields. They flooded the streets and struck the final defense lines. The academy headmaster formed a barrier around the cathedral. The first demon hit it. Cracks appeared. The second hit. The barrier dimmed. The third drove its shield mouth into the magic and bit through. The headmaster coughed blood. Students screamed his name. He turned and seized the nearest young mage. Then he threw her toward the breach. The demon tore her apart. The distraction gave him time to retreat deeper into the cathedral. The crowd saw. The noble leader who had lectured them about sacrifice had offered a student before offering himself. Something broke inside the survivors. Order vanished. Guild hunters abandoned their formations. Merchants stabbed one another over healing potions. Priests locked the cathedral's inner chamber and refused to admit the wounded. Iron Crest members began shouting accusations. The archer blamed the healer. The healer blamed the scouts. The warriors claimed Darius had concealed the curse. Every oath they had made dissolved under pressure. The Oathbreaker general felt each betrayal. Far beneath the streets, the chains around his spear began ringing. Kale raised one hand. The Grave Dominion answered. Bone doors opened inside the abandoned warehouses. Lyra guided marked civilians through the northern shelter. Bram activated the defensive runes. Finn led children through tunnels too narrow for the corpse giants. Celine burned morning lily incense around the wounded. The monsters avoided those buildings. People outside saw the safe zones. They rushed toward them. Kale's undead guards lowered their weapons. Only those carrying his seal were admitted. A merchant lord pounded on the bone door. I can pay. No one answered. An academy instructor shoved aside refugees and held up his emblem. I have authority. The door remained closed. A noblewoman screamed that her family owned half the district. Ash appeared on the roof above her. Green fire burned in the Duskhound's eyes. She fell silent. The people Kale had chosen entered. The people who had mocked his preparations remained outside. No speeches. No arguments. Only consequences. The cathedral barrier collapsed. Monsters surged into the square. Darius swung his sword until both arms trembled. Each strike released weaker flames. The gate heart had begun consuming his mana faster than it returned power. Mira crawled behind a broken pillar. The chain around her ankle tightened whenever she tried to move away from him. She cut at it with her dagger. The blade snapped. Darius saw her. "Help me." She looked toward the cathedral doors, then toward the advancing monsters. Her fear became calculation. She grabbed a wounded Iron Crest warrior and dragged him between herself and the nearest demon. The creature bit through his head. Mira ran while it fed. Darius watched her abandon another teammate. For the first time, he saw her clearly, not as loyal, not as loving, not as someone who had chosen him because he deserved greatness. She had chosen whichever person appeared strongest. Now he no longer did. "Coward," he shouted. Mira looked back. "You left Kale to die first." The words struck harder than the monsters. The surviving raid members heard them. So did the Academy officials. The lie cracked. A scout pointed at Darius. "You said Kale abandoned us." Mira's face went pale. Darius's expression twisted. "She is confused." "I stabbed him," Mira screamed. "You ordered it." The plaza became quiet around them. Not silent. Monsters still roared. People still died. But every survivor close enough to hear understood. The legendary raid had been built on betrayal. The catalyst had been stolen. The hero had sacrificed the weakling and rewritten the story. Darius raised his sword toward Mira. "You ungrateful parasite." She laughed bitterly. "You promised the crystal would make us untouchable. You wanted it as much as I did." They turned on each other while the city burned. Kale watched without satisfaction. Their collapse was predictable. Predictable things were not interesting. The Hellgate Sovereign lifted its skull. "Have you come to reclaim your throne, heir?" Kale stepped from the rooftop. He fell toward the street. Aldrin rose from his shadow before he touched the ground. The Dragon Grave Knight caught him with one arm. Ruin flame erupted beneath the knight's boots. They landed on the cathedral steps. The impact cracked the plaza. Every monster nearby stopped. Darius stared. Mira stopped breathing. The headmaster looked from Kale to Aldrin. Recognition twisted his face. That armor. The Academy displayed portraits of Sir Aldrin Vale in its Hall of Heroes. Students were taught that he had died protecting humanity. Now the legendary knight stood behind the trash Necromancer. Not as a corpse dragged by weak magic. As an elite warrior. Black scales covered his arm. A horn curved from his helmet. The pressure from his soul forced nearby hunters to their knees. Darius shook his head. "No." Kale walked forward. A skinless wolf charged him. Aldrin did not move. Kale did not look at it. Ash emerged from the wolf's shadow and tore out its spine. The duskhound landed beside Kale. Mist rolled from its paws. Then another hound appeared. Then another. Dozens of corpse beasts stepped from alleys and rooftops. Green eyes ignited across the square. The crowd recoiled. Kale continued walking. A blind giant lifted its cage club. The ground beneath it erupted. Graven burst from the street. The siege hunter slammed into the giant's chest and carried it through a building. Walls collapsed. A roar shook the district. Graven emerged from the dust with the giant's skull between its jaws. It crushed the head. The corpse fell. Kale extended 2 fingers. "Rise." Black fire consumed the giant. Its broken spine straightened. The souls inside its cage went silent. Blue flame replaced red. The creature turned toward the horde that had marched beside it moments earlier. Then it swung its club. 3 demons disappeared beneath the impact. The crowd stared. A monster that had slaughtered hunters had died, risen, and changed sides in a single breath. Darius's lips trembled. "That is impossible." Kale glanced at him for the first time. Darius flinched. The calm in Kale's eyes frightened him more than hatred would have. The Hellgate Sovereign spread its arms. All corpses belonged to the gate. Red fire surged through the streets. The dead under its control rushed toward Kale. The mother. The guards. The children. The fallen hunters. Thousands of bodies formed a tidal wave. The headmaster screamed, "They will bury us." Kale raised one hand. The shadow beneath St. Varen expanded. It passed beneath buildings, across alleys, through the cathedral, under the entire battlefield. The red flames inside the corpses flickered. Kale closed his hand. "Your gate borrowed them." His voice was quiet. The sovereign heard every word. "They were already mine." The grave dominion opened. Darkness erupted from the ground. Bone soldiers climbed from beneath the streets in perfect formation. Shield bearers locked ranks. Lancers lowered black spears. The pale choir appeared on rooftops and drew bows together. Mist assassins emerged behind enemy commanders. Heavy undead dragged siege weapons through portals of shadow. The army did not stumble. It did not groan. It did not swarm without purpose. It deployed. The bone wall split the plaza. The grave line advanced through its openings. Arrows fell like white rain. Each shot shattered a monster's joint or pierced a soul core. Shadow hunters crossed the battlefield and cut down gate priests before they could cast. The Bastion Reaper stepped from the cathedral's shadow. Its tower shield crushed a demon beneath it. The Great Cleaver swept sideways. Armor, bodies, and stone pillars split together. Then the Oathbreaker General arrived. He descended from a circle of black chains above the cathedral. His spear struck the ground. Every broken promise in the square answered. Darius collapsed. Mira fell beside him. The headmaster dropped to both knees. Guild leaders screamed as invisible chains wrapped around their throats. The general's power judged violated oaths. Ironcrest had sworn loyalty to Kale before betraying him. Mira had promised trust before driving a dagger into his body. The academy had promised to protect students while abandoning the weak. The headmaster had sworn to preserve life before feeding a student to a demon. Their own words became weight. Their bodies bent beneath it. Kale walked between them. He did not slow. Behind the undead formations, the red-eyed corpses rushed forward. The two armies collided. Red flame met blue. Bones shattered. Souls screamed. The Hellgate Sovereign tried to reclaim control. Kale's authority entered every fallen body first. Each enemy killed by the bone wall rose behind it. Every demon pierced by the grave line tore out its weapon and joined the formation. Flying corpses fell beneath the pale choir, then rose carrying blue fire in their wings. The invading army shrank. Kale's grew. The Sovereign summoned faster. Kale harvested faster. Within moments, the battlefield changed color. Red flames disappeared beneath an ocean of blue. The people who had spent their lives mocking necromancy watched it become the only reason they were still breathing. A professor crawled from beneath a corpse. He stared at Kale's army. This cannot be a trash class. A nearby student laughed hysterically. They had called Kale useless because he could raise one weak skeleton. Now entire battalions obeyed a gesture. They had thrown insects into his food and told him to build an army. They had laughed at his bones. Those bones now formed walls protecting them from hell. The Hellgate Sovereign roared. Its many arms tore free from beneath the skin cloak. It attacked Kale directly. A forest of claws descended. Aldrin stepped forward. Ruined flame covered his body. The Dragon Grave Knight thrust his lance. A black dragon's skull formed around the weapon. The impact destroyed dozens of claws. Aldrin was thrown backward, but he landed on one knee. The Sovereign paused. It recognized the technique. Dragon Slave. Aldrin rose. The spear in his hands burned brighter. The insult could not disturb the dead. Kale gave a single order. Advance. The commanders moved. Ash and the Dusk Pack vanished into the Sovereign's cloak. Graven attacked its lower body. The Bastion Reaper blocked the falling hands. The Oathbreaker General hurled his chained spear into the creature's floating skull. Aldrin became a streak of ruined flame and struck the red eye. Kale's army attacked as one. The Sovereign staggered. Its foot crushed the cathedral tower. The red eye cracked. Darius watched from the ground. He had needed the gate heart to imitate a dragon's flame. Kale's servant wielded the real thing. He had needed public praise to feel powerful. Kale commanded legends without announcing their names. He had stolen a treasure. Kale had taken the dungeon itself. Mira looked at the army surrounding them. The truth arrived slowly. Then all at once. Every undead bowed toward Kyle when he passed. The knights. The beasts. The assassins. The giants. Even the monsters that had terrorized the city lowered their heads after rising beneath his authority. The army they feared most belonged to the man they had trampled. Darius tried to stand. The Oathbreaker chains tightened. He fell harder. Kale. Kale walked past. Darius reached for his cloak. Ash appeared between them and exposed black fangs. Darius pulled his hand back. We can explain. Kale did not look down. Mira crawled beside Darius. Her silver cloak was torn. Blood covered her face. Please, we made a mistake. Kale continued toward the Hellgate Sovereign. The undead ranks opened before him. Behind him, Darius and Mira remained on their knees. Before him, the ancient creature tore Aldrin's lance from its eye and laughed through a broken skull. The gate widened above St. Verin. Something even larger moved beyond it. Kale looked up. Then his shadow spread across the entire cathedral district. The battle had not ended. It had only become worthy of him. The thing beyond the Hellgate pressed one claw against the opening. The sky above St. Varen bent. Clouds twisted into a black spiral. Lightning crawled upward. The moon disappeared behind the outline of an enormous wing. The Hellgate sovereign laughed through its fractured skull. "You still believe I am the invasion?" Kale watched the claw widen the tear between worlds. "No." His shadow spread beneath the ruined cathedral. "You are the first corpse." The sovereign's red eye contracted. Then every arm beneath its cloak attacked. Aldrin met the first wave. His lance became a streak of ruined flame. Black fire carved through claws, severing them before they could reach Kale. Each destroyed arm burst into red ash. But more grew from the sovereign's body. The creature had fed on centuries of dead worlds. Every soul it consumed became another limb. Every army it defeated remained trapped beneath its skin. Kale saw the structure immediately. Destroying the body would accomplish nothing. The sovereign's true core was hidden behind the gate. The monster standing before him was only a projection anchored through Darius and the stolen gate heart. Kale turned his gaze. Darius was crawling toward a broken side door. The black crystal remained fused to his palm. Chains ran from his body into the sovereign's chest. Every step stretched them tighter. Mira crawled behind him. Neither tried to help the other. They only wanted to escape first. The Oathbreaker general lifted his spear. The chains around Darius and Mira rang. Both traitors slammed into the floor. Darius screamed, "Release me." The general did not move. Kale raised one finger. "Let them crawl." The pressure weakened. Darius dragged himself forward again. Hope returned to his face. He believed Kale had shown mercy. He did not understand that Kale needed the gate heart closer to the altar. The sovereign attacked again. Graven charged through the storm of claws. Hook shot from the siege hunter's shoulders. They wrapped around the sovereign's lower body and pulled. Stone exploded beneath Graven's feet, but the beast refused to yield. A red hand struck its skull. Graven crashed through the cathedral wall. Its jaw shattered. One foreleg snapped. The sovereign raised another claw to finish it. Ash appeared from the monster's shadow. The dusk hound ran vertically across the sovereign's cloak, each step leaving green fire behind. Its pack followed through the same path. Dozens of shadow beasts entered the stitched skin. They attacked the trapped souls within. The sovereign convulsed. Faces pushed out from beneath its cloak. Kings, soldiers, priests, children, monsters. Entire civilizations screamed as Ash's pack tore through the chains binding them. The Duskhound reached the sovereign's neck. It bit into a red soul vein. Darkness swallowed its body. For one breath, Ash vanished. Then a howl erupted from inside the ancient creature. The sovereign's cloak split open. Ash leaped out, larger than before. Twin horns curved from its skull. Green fire had become pale silver. Shadows no longer clung to its paws. They bowed. The system responded. Duskhound has devoured a gate chain. Pack authority has evolved. Ash has become the hound of silent graves. Every beast unit in Kale's army howled. Their bodies blurred. The entire pack entered the sovereign's shadow at once. Kale's beast commander had gained the ability to drag its followers through any darkness it touched. No wall could stop them now. No fortress could hide prey from the pack. The sovereign roared and tore off a section of its own cloak to remove them. Thousands of stolen souls spilled into the air. Kyle extended his hand. "Come here." The released spirits rushed toward him. The sovereign tried to reclaim them. Its red chains tightened around the souls. The Oathbreaker general thrust his spear into the ground. The chains around his weapon awakened. Betrayal answered betrayal. Every stolen oath inside the sovereign became visible. Promises made to dead kings. Contracts forced upon conquered armies. False offers of salvation. The general pulled. The ancient creature's soul chains snapped one after another. The freed spirits entered Kale's shadow. They did not become soldiers. Most were too damaged. Kale refined them into pure death energy and poured it through the grave dominion. Broken undead repaired themselves. Shattered bones reassembled. Graven climbed from the ruins. Its jaw formed again. The siege hunter charged with greater force. The Bastion Reaper planted its shield beneath the sovereign's descending claw. The impact drove the heavy undead into the earth. Its bones cracked. Its cleaver fell. Still, it held. The shield absorbed the force meant for hundreds of soldiers behind it. Kale felt something change inside the servant. Not hunger. Not instinct. Purpose. The nameless executioner had once killed because it was commanded. The Bastion Reaper now protected because it chose a role. Kale rewarded distinction. Your name is Mord. Blue fire erupted inside the Reaper's armor. The shield expanded. Dragon bone spread across its surface. The fallen cleaver dissolved and merged with its arm, becoming a curved blade along the edge of the shield. Named Elite recognized. Mord has become the Grave Bastion. Guardian authority awakened. Damage received while defending allied undead may be converted into armor. Mord rose beneath the Sovereign's claw. The more pressure the ancient creature applied, the thicker his armor became. Cal's army advanced behind him. The Pale Choir fired over his shoulders. Bone arrows struck every exposed soul vein. Mist assassins appeared on the Sovereign's back and carved symbols into its flesh. The Grave Line drove lances into its legs. The bone wall closed around the cathedral square. The battle ceased to resemble a desperate defense. It became an execution performed by an empire. The Sovereign looked beyond the army and focused on Kale. You command fragments. Kale continued walking toward the altar. You hide behind a corpse. The ancient monster tore its floating skull away from the Oathbreaker General's chains. You inherited the Dragon King's scent, but not his throne. Aldrin stopped. Ruined flame flickered. The Sovereign laughed. At last, your servant remembers. A memory struck Kale through Aldrin's bond. A battlefield beneath a dead sun. The Black Dragon King, standing before the Hell Gate. Aldrin kneeling beside him. The Oath Eater offering false loyalty behind them. The Dragon King did not die in battle. He chose death. His living power could seal the gate only for a time. His corpse could become an eternal lock, so he ordered Aldrin to preserve the air. Then he allowed the Sovereign to strike him down. The black crystal had not merely been bait. It had been carved from the Dragon King's final wound. Kale understood why it had responded to his blood. He had not awakened a random forbidden class. The authority had been waiting inside his soul since birth. The Dragon King's power was never draconic blood alone. It was the right to rule those who had crossed death and returned. The same authority now lived inside Kale. The Sovereign's eye burned brighter. Your first death was prepared by those who feared that bloodline. Another memory entered Kale. Not from Aldrin. From the Gateheart, a room inside the academy. The headmaster speaking with masked guild leaders. A child standing inside a ritual circle. Kale, his original awakening had not failed naturally. The academy had detected the mark of the Death Sovereign in him years earlier. They had sealed most of his power. They had assigned instructors to keep him weak. They had encouraged the mockery. They had placed Mira near him. Darius's betrayal had not been an accident. The Academy wanted Kale dead inside the dungeon. They needed his blood to activate the Gateheart. Darius had believed he was stealing a treasure. He had actually followed orders written long before he entered the chamber. Kyle turned toward the headmaster. The old man had reached the cathedral steps. He froze beneath Kale's gaze. No, he whispered. The Oathbreaker General appeared behind him. The headmaster raised both hands. I was protecting humanity. The general's chains tightened around his throat. You were born carrying a calamity. The headmaster gasped. We had no choice. Kale looked at the Hell Gate consuming the sky. You opened it. We believed the ritual would destroy both bloodlines. You believed Darius could control what remained. The headmaster began shaking. Kale had found a hidden calculation beneath the conspiracy. The Academy planned to use Kale's death to awaken the Gateheart. Then they would bind its power to a more obedient student. Darius was never meant to become a hero. He was meant to become a weapon. The plan failed because the people who designed it underestimated both ancient powers. They had mocked necromancy. They had believed death could be controlled through committees, contracts, and public ceremonies. Now their city was disappearing beneath the consequences. The Sovereign raised both arms. The claw beyond the gate pushed farther through. A second red eye opened in the sky. The true body was coming. Kale reached the altar. Darius lay beside it. The Gateheart dragged him toward the pit. Mira held his ankle, using him to stop herself from sliding closer. Darius kicked her face. Her fingers loosened. She caught his ruined arm instead. The crystal pulsed between them. Mira stared at it. Greed returned even now. If I take the heart, will it choose me? Darius looked at her in disbelief. Then she drove her broken dagger into his wrist. He screamed. Mira tore at the crystal. The Gateheart reacted to fresh blood. Chains erupted from it and pierced her chest. Darius laughed through tears. You wanted my power? Mira's face twisted. She pulled harder. You stole it first. Their struggle widened the gate. Kale watched them complete the ritual with their own hands. The sovereign's true skull began descending through the sky. Mountains of broken crowns formed around it. The entire city sank beneath its pressure. Kale placed one palm against the altar. The grave dominion opened below. The hidden passage to the Dragon King's tomb appeared beneath the cathedral. Every surviving hunter saw it. The sealed wall cracked. Black light flooded upward. Then the corpse rose. The Dragon King emerged beneath Kale. Its wings unfolded across the city. Buildings disappeared under their shadow. Obsidian scales reflected the red gate. A crown of broken swords rested between its horns. The corpse was larger than the cathedral district. Its empty chest still contained the wound from which the gate heart had been carved. The crowd forgot how to breathe. Darius stopped fighting. Mira released the crystal. The headmaster fell flat against the ground. Every monster from the Hellgate lowered its body. Even the sovereign's projection stepped back. The academy had ranked beasts according to strength. Common, elite, commander, disaster, catastrophe. The corpse before them stood beyond those measures. A sovereign creature, a dragon king whose presence alone forced Hell's army to kneel. Kale stepped onto its skull. The sealed soul resisted. Its ancient will crashed against his authority. Mountains shattered inside his mind. Dead stars burned. The Dragon King had sacrificed itself willingly. But sacrifice did not equal submission. It would not serve a weak heir. Kale did not force the extraction immediately. He opened every memory he had earned. Betrayal, humiliation, patience. The army created from scraps. The fortress claimed through strategy. The living followers protected through preparation. The commanders evolved through purpose. The Dragon King saw all of it. Then it showed Kale one final vision. A throne surrounded by kneeling worlds. The question carried no words. What will you become? Kale answered without hesitation. The reason no one opens that gate again. The Dragon King's soul roared. The sound crossed both worlds. The corpse's eyes ignited with black fire. The extraction succeeded. Supreme Undead awakened. The Black Sovereign of Ruin recognizes the heir. The Dragon King lowered its head. The impossible creature knelt beneath Kale. Every Undead in St. Varen followed. Aldrin planted his lance and bowed. The Oathbreaker general dropped to one knee. Ash lowered its horns. Graven pressed its skull to the ground. Mord raised his shield in salute. The entire corpse empire acknowledged its king. Darius looked up from the altar. The dragon he had imitated was kneeling beneath the man he called trash. His face collapsed. No. Kale extended his hand. The gate heart tore free from Darius's palm. Black chains ripped through his body. Every stolen reward followed. The catalyst, the title, the false class, the power he had displayed before the city. All of it left him at once. Darius became what he had always feared. Ordinary, weak, replaceable. Kale closed his fingers around the crystal. The Dragon King inhaled. The Hellgate Sovereign tried to retreat. Too late. Black flame covered the sky. The dragon's breath struck the true body beyond the gate. The ancient sovereign screamed. Its projection collapsed. Its armies lost command. Kale raised the gate heart. Rise. Every fallen demon returned beneath blue fire. The creatures turned toward the opening. Then Kale sent Hell's own army back through the gate. Aldrin led the charge. The Oathbreaker general followed with the heavy infantry. Ash's pack hunted across the edges of the collapsing world. Graven smashed the enemy fortifications. Mord guarded the passage while the Pale Choir darkened the dead sky with arrows. The Hellgate Sovereign retreated across mountains made from conquered corpses. Kale pursued on the Dragon King's head. The war lasted until the red sun shattered. Aldrin pierced the Sovereign's central eye. The Oathbreaker general broke every contract binding its stolen souls. Ash devoured its escape path. Graven tore apart the throne beneath it. Mord endured the final detonation and remained standing. When the Sovereign's true body fell, Kale extracted it. The soul resisted. The Dragon King placed one claw upon its skull. Resistance ended. The ancient creature rose as Kale's first gate servant. The ruler that had devoured worlds now carried the chains of the empire it tried to conquer. When Kale returned to St. Varen, the city saw the Hellgate Sovereign walking behind him with its head lowered. The survivors did not cheer. They were too terrified. Truth spread through the capital before sunset. Kale had not appeared at the last moment. He had prepared shelters, stockpiled food, claimed the underground fortress, raised commanders. mapped the invasion, allowed the traitors to expose the gate. Then he had conquered the world beyond it. He was not a hero created by disaster. He was the king who had prepared his throne before anyone else realized the world was ending. Darius tried to escape during the return. He offered the Academy's secrets to a guild master. The guild master struck him and offered Darius to Kale instead. Mira tried to blame Darius. The surviving Iron Crest members blamed her. The headmaster promised evidence against the guilds. The guilds produced records proving the headmaster designed the ritual. Every traitor sold another traitor. Kale reclaimed everything. The stolen raid reward. His academy records. The sealed inheritance. The properties taken from Lyra. Bram's forge. Celine's research. Finn's freedom. Then he reclaimed the dead. The Iron Crest archer died while running. Kale raised him as a low-ranked bone carrier. The healer who laughed at his wounds became an undead attendant assigned to clean the fortress kennels. The academy instructor who encouraged students to mock necromancy became a silent corpse clerk cataloging monster remains. They retained enough memory to understand their positions. Not enough power to resist. Darius and Mira remained alive. Their despair was not complete. Kale left them outside the Grave Dominion. The city's remaining leaders begged him to open the shelters permanently. He refused. Entry required service, value, or proven loyalty. Family names meant nothing. Titles meant nothing. Former popularity meant nothing. Days later, the first refugees reached the Bone Gates. Academy officials crawled at the front. Guildmasters followed. Iron Crest survivors dragged Darius between them. Mira crawled beside him with chains around her wrists. Behind them came the families who had mocked Kale, the nobles who had funded the ritual, and the citizens who once cheered while his name was erased. They gathered beneath the walls of his underground empire. They cried. They raised old photographs. They claimed misunderstandings. They promised obedience. They begged the Lord of Death to save them. Above the gate, the Dragon King opened its eyes. Kale sat beyond it on the throne they had tried to steal from his bloodline. And every person outside finally understood that judgment had not yet begun. The Bone Gates remained closed. Outside, thousands of survivors knelt in the dust. Some cried quietly. Others screamed Kale's name until their throats bled. Guildmasters held contracts above their heads. Noble families displayed jewelry, property deeds, and sealed chests. Academy officials dragged records, proving that someone else had ordered the ritual. Priests promised to declare Kale a saint if he allowed them inside. At the front of the crowd, Darius lay face down beneath the weight of iron chains. Mira knelt beside him. Her hair was tangled. Her silver cloak had become a filthy rag. She stared through the gate at the black palace beyond. The Grave Dominion no longer resembled the ruined valley Kale had first discovered. Bone towers rose above the dead forest. Blue fire burned along the battlements. Undead dragons circled beneath the cavern ceiling. Soul lanterns floated over roads paved with polished black stone. The Grey River had become a shining current of concentrated death energy. Along its banks, undead workers refined monster cores, forged weapons, repaired armor, and sorted the resources harvested from the Hellgate. Everything the outside world lacked existed in abundance behind those walls. Food warehouses stood full. Healing halls treated the wounded. Protected wells flowed without corruption. The Dragonbone Forge burned day and night. Living followers moved safely among disciplined undead soldiers. No one fought over scraps. No one stole medicine. No one pushed children beneath monsters. The empire beneath the graveyard had become the safest place in the dying world. That fact hurt the people outside more than hunger. They had laughed when Kale bought abandoned warehouses. They had mocked him for collecting bones. They had called his preparations cowardice. Now those same preparations stood between them and extinction. The gates opened. Silence crushed the crowd. The Bone Wall marched out first. Shield-bearers formed two perfect lines. The Pale Choir appeared along the battlements. Ash stood above the entrance with silver fire burning in his eyes. Graven crouched beside the road, chains dragging from his shoulders. Mord planted his shield before the gate. Aldrin and the Oathbreaker General walked through together. Then the Black Dragon King descended. Its claws struck the ground outside the walls. The impact forced every kneeling survivor lower. Kale sat upon a throne fixed between its horns. He wore no ceremonial armor, no golden crown, no jeweled cloak, only black clothes, dark gloves, and the narrow circlet of broken oaths resting against his forehead. One hand held a glass of wine. The other rested on the gate heart. The crystal no longer glowed red. Blue-gray fire moved beneath its surface. Kale looked over the people who had once decided he was worthless. No anger crossed his face. That frightened them most. Darius lifted his head. Kale. Ash growled. Darius immediately lowered his eyes. Mira crawled forward until Mord's shield blocked her path. Please listen. Kale took a slow drink. Mira's voice broke. I know you hate me. No. The answer was calm. She looked up. For one desperate moment, hope entered her face. Kale studied the crystal in his hand. Hate requires effort. Her hope died. She pressed both hands against the ground. What happened in the dungeon was a misunderstanding. Kale's gaze moved to the dagger hanging from her belt. The blade she had used to stab him had been recovered from the cathedral ruins. Mira followed his eyes. Her lips trembled. Darius forced me. Darius twisted toward her. You planned it with me. She shouted over him. I was afraid. I thought he would kill me if I refused. Kale spoke softly. You smiled. Mira froze. He repeated her own words. You should have stayed useless. The crowd heard every syllable. Mira began shaking. Kale continued. You took my storage ring. You searched the grave warden's corpse. Then you asked me to hand over anything valuable so you could forget the misunderstanding. Her mouth opened. No excuse came out. Kale looked toward Darius. The former hero dragged himself onto his knees. We were manipulated by the academy. The headmaster shouted from behind him. Liar. Darius turned. You designed the ritual. You accepted the crystal willingly. You told me it was safe. You wanted the power. The Oathbreaker general lowered his spear. The chains around both men tightened. Their accusations became choking noises. Kale watched until they fell silent. Then he addressed Darius. You ordered the team to leave me before the Guardian. Darius swallowed. We thought you were dead. You heard me breathing. I panicked. You came back for the loot. That was Mira. She returned. You waited at the gate. Darius's face collapsed. Every lie had already been extracted from the memories of the dead Iron Crest members. There was nowhere left to hide. He tried another path. We were friends. Kale's expression did not change. Darius leaned forward. We trained together. We fought together. I made mistakes, but we can rebuild. Give me a place in your army. I know the academy. I know the guilds. I can be useful. Kale looked toward the undead clerk standing near Mord. The corpse wore an academy instructor's robe. Its hands were stained from cataloging remains. I already have people who know the academy. He looked toward the bone carrier dragging supplies through the gate. The undead archer lowered his head as he passed. I already have members of Iron Crest. Darius stared at his former teammate. Recognition turned to horror. The archer retained enough awareness to meet his eyes. Then the corpse continued hauling boxes. Darius began crawling backward. Kale turned to the guildmasters. They immediately raised their contracts. One shouted that he would transfer every property he owned. Another promised an army. A third offered information about hidden vaults. Kale lifted one finger. They stopped speaking. Lyra stepped through the gate carrying a ledger. She opened it. The Northern Guild stole medicine during the first attack and sold it at 10 times the original price. The guild master fell flat. I was preserving supplies. The Eastern Guild locked civilians outside its fortress. Another leader began crying. We lacked space. Your wine cellar remained empty. Bram approached with a bundle of broken weapons. These were taken from refugee guards after the guilds promised them protection. Finn placed several bloodstained badges on the ground. The living followers did not accuse without evidence. Kale had chosen them because they understood preparation. They also understood judgment. The guild masters began blaming their subordinates. Officers blamed merchants. Merchants blamed guards. Guards blamed the panic. Kale let them speak. Every excuse revealed another person willing to betray the rest. When they had finished, the Oathbreaker general struck the ground with his spear. The contracts in their hands ignited. Invisible chains appeared around every guilty throat. Kyle addressed the crowd. Entry into the Dominion is not free. Hope stirred. Some believed they could buy forgiveness. Those who protected others will receive shelter. Marked civilians were separated from the crowd. A baker who had hidden children inside his cellar. A wounded guard who had held a bridge after his captain fled. A healer who treated strangers after exhausting her mana. Laborers who shared food. Hunters who defended escape routes without demanding payment. The bone gates opened for them. Kale's living followers guided them inside. Families who had committed no betrayal but possessed useful skills were tested. Farmers, builders, researchers, smiths, scouts. They received conditional entry. They would work. They would follow the Dominion's laws. They would not receive power because they cried loudly. The remaining nobles began protesting. One woman raised a portrait of Kale as a child. "I knew your mother." Kale looked at the image. The woman smiled through tears. "She would want you to forgive us." Kale remembered her. She had attended his awakening ceremony. When his necromancer class appeared, she had covered her nose and asked the servants to remove him from the banquet hall. She had later pressured his landlord to evict him. Now, she invoked his mother. Kale handed the gate heart to Aldrin. Then he removed one glove. The scar from Mira's dagger remained beneath his ribs. "My mother asked your family for medicine." The noblewoman's smile vanished. "You refused because helping the mother of a trash class hunter would damage your reputation. I did not know she was ill. You sent the refusal personally." She lowered the portrait. Kale's eyes became colder. "Do not use the dead to rewrite what the living chose." The gates closed before her. No punishment was necessary. Silence was enough. Kale turned toward the headmaster. The old man had stopped struggling. He looked small without his robes, staff, and title. "I truly believed your bloodline would destroy humanity," he said. "So, you opened hell. We miscalculated. You experimented on a child. To prevent a greater calamity, you placed Mira near me." The headmaster looked away. "You shaped Darius into a weapon. He was willing. You taught the crowd to mock necromancy, so no one would question why my power remained sealed." The headmaster's lips pressed together. Kale leaned back against the throne. "You did not fear calamity." The old man looked up. "You feared a power the Academy could not own." The truth struck harder than accusation. Every official behind the headmaster lowered their eyes. Kale gave the Oathbreaker General a single command: "Take their titles." The chains moved. Academy emblems tore from ropes. Guild marks burned away. Magical contracts shattered. The authority those people had used to ruin lives vanished. They would enter the Dominion, not as leaders, as laborers. They would rebuild the outer city they had allowed to fall. They would receive food only after the refugees under their care were fed. They would sleep behind the walls they repaired. Anyone who abandoned another worker would be expelled into the Deadlands. The headmaster stared. "You are letting me live?" "For now." Relief crossed his face. Kale finished his wine. "You wanted to shape humanity from above." The undead guards lifted the old man. "Now you can carry stones from below." The crowd watched their former leaders dragged toward the labor tunnels. No applause followed. The punishment was worse than public death. The people who had ruled through titles would spend their remaining years obeying those they once ignored. Kale finally looked at Darius. The gate heart floated from Aldrin's hand. It moved toward its former bearer. Darius screamed and tried to crawl away. The crystal followed. "You wanted the treasure," Kale said. Darius shook his head violently. "No. You claimed it before the entire Academy. I give it back." "You called accepting its risk an act of courage. It was yours." Kale's calm smile appeared. "Now you remember." The gate heart fused into Darius's chest. Black veins spread across his body. He screamed as the false class returned. Not its strength, only its cost. Every wound the Hellgate Sovereign had suffered appeared across Darius's flesh. Every soul the crystal had consumed whispered inside his skull. Every chain he had placed on others wrapped around his bones. Darius collapsed. He would not die. The gate heart preserved its handle. That was his sentence. He would carry the cursed treasure he had stolen until Kale decided the debt had been paid. The strongest undead assigned to guard him was the former Iron Crest Archer. The low-ranked bone carrier seized Darius by the chain and dragged him away. Darius begged his dead teammate for help. The corpse did not slow. Mira watched him disappear. Her face had gone empty. She looked toward Kale. "What will you do to me?" Kale gestured. A skeletal attendant brought forward a small wooden table. On it rested two objects: her broken dagger and Kale's old storage ring. Mira stared at them. "You valued useful things," Kale said. She began crying. "I was wrong. You valued whoever appeared strongest. I choose you now." The crowd recoiled at the shamelessness. Mira crawled closer. "I can serve you. I can fight. I know Darius's secrets. I will do anything." Kale looked past her toward the Black Palace. "You already proved what your loyalty is worth." He ordered the undead attendant to place the ring inside her hands. Hope returned again. Then the ring opened. Every item Mira had stolen from Kale poured onto the ground. Old coins, broken equipment, letters, a cheap pendant, a recovery potion she had refused to give him in the dungeon. The final object was a memory crystal. It replayed Mira's voice. "You were useful. Did you honestly think I would stay with a man who commands broken skeletons?" The words echoed across the gate. Mira covered her ears. Kale said nothing more. Mord opened a narrow passage through the bone wall. Beyond it waited the ruined surface road. No shelter. No escort. No army. Mira looked toward the Dominion. Then toward the wasteland. "You cannot abandon me." Kale repeated the decision she had made while he bled before the grave warden. "The situation forces me to make a difficult choice." She screamed as the gates pushed her outside. She begged. She invoked love. She called him cruel. She promised to return. The gates closed. Her voice disappeared behind bone and stone. Kale did not look back. A warning spread through the Dominion. The gate heart pulsed inside Darius. The final fragment of the Hellgate had awakened. Above the ruined city, a red wound reopened in the sky. The extracted Hellgate sovereign knelt before Kale. Its chained skull lowered. "The passage cannot remain sealed while my original throne exists beyond it." The war was not finished. A throne on the other side continued generating gates. Destroying it would collapse every remaining path between worlds. Kale rose. The Black Dragon King spread its wings. Aldrin mounted the dragon's neck. The Oathbreaker General assembled the heavy legions. Ash summoned the Grave Pack. Graven dragged the captured sovereign's chains. Mord took position before the living followers. The army filled the horizon beneath the earth. Kale opened the gate himself. No ritual, no sacrifice, no stolen blood. The darkness obeyed. His empire marched into the world of dead suns. The throne waited on a mountain built from every civilization the sovereign had consumed. It defended itself with corpse gods. Fallen saints descended from black clouds. Dragon skeletons rose from rivers of fire. Kings without faces commanded armies of bound souls. Kale answered with his own hierarchy. Aldrin challenged the dead dragons. Ruin flame consumed their wings. The Oathbreaker General entered the ranks of the faceless kings and broke the contracts holding their armies. Ash crossed the mountain through its shadow and tore out the throne's hidden anchors. Graven climbed the corpse walls, dragging siege chains through towers. Mord stood before the living expedition and absorbed attacks that could erase cities. The Black Dragon King fought the corpse gods above the dead sun. Each enemy that fell joined Kale. Saints turned their holy blades against the throne. Dragons lowered their skulls. Kings surrendered their dead armies. The empire expanded with every step. At the summit, Kale found the true throne. It was empty. The power behind the gates had never been a creature. It was a law, a command carved into death itself. The dead must serve whoever kills them. That law had created the Hellgate Sovereign. It had chained worlds to endless cycles of conquest. Kale placed one hand on the throne. The ancient command entered his soul. It offered him everything. Every corpse in every world. Every dead god. Every fallen king. An army without limit. All he needed to do was preserve the law. Kale looked at the servants behind him. Aldrin had served through loyalty. The Oathbreaker General had been rebuilt after betrayal was stripped from his soul. Ash had evolved through hunger and purpose. Graven had submitted when offered freedom from chains. Mord had earned a name by choosing to protect. His empire was not powerful because the dead had lost choice. It was powerful because even death could not erase what they had become. Kale crushed the throne. The law screamed. The mountain collapsed. Every hell gate across the worlds began closing. The dead sun ignited with blue fire. The Black Dragon King caught Kale as the final passage fell apart. His army returned to the grave dominion beneath a sky no longer wounded by red light. The gate sealed. The crystal inside Darius shattered. He survived, powerless, still chained. The invasion ended. Years passed. The ruined surface cities rebuilt themselves around entrances to the grave dominion. Living settlements followed Kale's laws. Work earned shelter. Loyalty earned trust. Betrayal earned consequences. The undead army covered mountains, valleys, and skies. Aldrin became commander of the Dragon Guard. The Oathbreaker General judged contracts between kingdoms. Ash hunted threats that tried to hide beyond the borders. Graven guarded the roads. Mord stood beside the central gate. his shield marked with the names of everyone he had protected. Lyra controlled the Empire's resources. Bram commanded the forges. Selene restored damaged souls. Finn directed an intelligence network that no living spy could escape. No one called necromancy a trash class again. Darius remained alive in the lowest prison. The former hero spent his days cleaning the chains of undead soldiers. Sometimes new prisoners asked who he had been. He always lied. The bone carrier standing behind him always remembered. Mira was seen once near the outer settlements. She tried to join a merchant caravan by claiming she had once been close to the Lord of Death. The merchants recognized her. They left her beside the road. The same kind of people she had once used abandoned her the moment she stopped being valuable. Kale never asked what happened afterward. On the anniversary of the Hell Gate's destruction, representatives from every surviving kingdom gathered inside the Black Palace. They offered crowns. Kale refused them. He already possessed something greater. Outside, countless undead knelt beneath the blue-lit sky. Dragons folded their wings. Corpse kings lowered their weapons. Living citizens stood safely between formations of immortal soldiers. Kale sat upon the throne of broken oaths and looked over the world that had risen from its own grave. A young academy student approached. The boy had awakened a weak class. The crowd had mocked him. He asked Kale how to endure humiliation. Kale rested one hand against the head of the Black Dragon King. His smile was calm, cold, almost amused. Let them laugh. Graves are quieter after the audience climbs inside. Is less than, the end is greater than,